You know,
being here. What's up?
I was thinking about something.
What are we thinking about, bro?
I was thinking about what's going on in the earth, right?
What's happening in our minds?
Yeah, and I wondered, why does it matter?
We're about to find out.
Holy shit. Ready?
Just kidding.
Welcome to Earth, Mind, and Matter. We said, fuck it, let's talk about albums. We said, let's talk about some movies and some fucking comics. This week in the universe, across the internet.
So what's up, Javi?
What's going on, Frankie?
Yo.
So,
What's
I was about to come into this episode
Uh-huh.
and be like, man, I'm really upset with you, Frankie.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I was gonna come into this episode and be like, I'm really upset with you.
Are you doing this or are you not doing this?
Well, you redeemed yourself is the thing.
Okay.
Because, you know, for people who don't know, Frankie and I work together.
We do work together.
And so,
Not only on this podcast.
yes, we work together outside this podcast at a job.
A job. Real world type of shit.
Yeah, in the Matrix.
In the Matrix. Not Target, though. We definitely don't work at Target.
Fuck Target.
And that stupid ass dog.
But
what's up?
I came in and, you know, I was so excited to do one thing today.
What's up?
And I'm always excited to do this. I always tell you, I'm like, I want to do the trash run.
Oh.
I was like, I want to do the fucking trash run.
Yeah, for those that don't know what a trash run is, it's when you take the trash and you don't necessarily run with it, but you take it out. You know?
Yeah, you just take the trash out.
And I don't really take out the trash usually because I'm so busy, you know, coordinating, you know, our space of work and making sure everything is precise and crystal clear to everybody, you know, like putting in the work that, you know, few are able to do.
Okay.
But I'll still probably do it because I'm so amazing at it, you know?
All right.
You know, so I don't want to lack on any time I could provide. So yeah, man, you know.
But
what's up?
I really want to do that trash run. I told you about it. And then our good friend Henry came in and you sent him on a trash run.
Yeah, man. And
I felt betrayed.
Well, he has glasses.
I mean, that should put him at a disability.
Nah, man. If anything, he can do it better because he has an advantage. He can see better.
Well,
you know
how? No, he cannot. I bet I have better vision than him, even with his glasses on.
I bet you're not an optometrist though.
I don't know what you called me. But I am Optimus Prime. Basically.
But Henry is Bumblebee and Shia LaBeouf at the same time. You know, Shia LaBeouf said that Transformers fucked up his life.
I believe it.
He was wearing a Lacoste shirt in the Transformers movie though.
He also wore a Strokes t-shirt.
I didn't know that.
In the first one.
Well, fuck you, Shia LaBeouf. You were in a fucking movie. I never watched any of his most recent stuff, like Honey Boy.
Honey Boy's really good.
Yeah, I hear Honey Boy's good. And
Peanut Butter Falcon is also really good.
I don't know what that is.
It's it's him. It's kind of like a Mark Twain sort of story as a movie. And it's him and a mentally disabled guy.
You mean not Shia LaBeouf?
No. And it's just these two road tripping across the country.
Okay.
And it's a really nice story.
It's interesting. I don't know if you remember when he did that. Well, first of all, what the fuck are we doing here? we just have a conversation out the bat. First of all, this is what happened on the earth.
In our minds.
And why it matters.
This is Earth, Mind, and Matter.
I'm Shia LaBeouf.
And I'm Bumblebee.
Fucking, you remember when he did the whole exhibit where it was like Trump will not divide us or something?
I think so.
So I think he had multiple of those things, and one of them was like a flagpole, right? A flagpole that stood and the camera was facing upwards and only captured the flagpole. And what happened is that he tried to again speak out against Trump or his you know presidency or whatever's happening in the world. And actually his exhibit was in not that one, but the other one, the He Will Not Divide Us with a camera. That was in New York City. Okay. Remember that in Astoria?
I don't think so.
It's right next to Kaufman. But the flagpole thing, right? It was the camera was aimed up so you can only see the sky and the flagpole. And he basically had it broadcasted live, like kind of how he did his whole like watching all his movies, back to back. So it was there, and the message was, you know, to oppose Trump. But after a while, a bunch of people or a group of people, they basically figured out where the sun was, when it would set, what time they put the pieces all together. Like they would start making noises around
This
the flag.
sounds familiar.
And they eventually found it. And I think they either put up a different flag, either like a fuck you flag or just something like a Confederate flag. I don't know what it was. But they outsmarted Shia LaBeouf, and that was pretty dope. I don't give a fuck. Sorry, brother. Mike. I don't care either way.
I like how you do the little hand gesture.
I burp. Yo, I talk with my hands so much, bro. I didn't realize it, but when you fast forward, it's like I'm dangling from. But my hands just move so much.
It's almost like you're part Italian.
I'm about to sit on my hands on some real shit, or I don't know. But I noticed that when I'm editing the video. So anyway, I don't know if you heard about this Will Smith thing.
Yeah. I saw the headline. And I was like, that's juicy.
What the headline said today?
It basically just said that Will Smith is banned from the Oscars for the next 10 years.
And anything associated with the Oscars.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like there's not going to be like 1,000 other celebrities out there, and I'm sure we both have takes on it. And for sure, I wasn't going to want to talk about this on the podcast just because, it just seems like something that everybody has an opinion on for sure, but Will Smith is just one guy and, poor Chris Rock, just being, there in a suit and shit. And Jada's bald head. Anyway, I wanted to start off with something, right? Okay. So I just want you to follow my lead. I kind of had some stuff written down for that little occasion, right? So, all right. So let's see. All right. So I got a couple reasons and like some funnies for why, know. So I want to say like Will Smith didn't smack Chris Rock for making fun of Jada's hair. He smacked him because him and Jada have the same haircut. Oh,
okay. Shit.
All right. Will Smith trained months to play one of the toughest and best boxers, activist, Muhammad Ali. Just a bitch slap a defenseless man. Oh, wow. But maybe Will Smith went for the handshake, but the reflection of Jada Smith's bald head, blinded him, and he slapped Chris Rock by mistake. And my last one. Knock knock.
Now who's there?
Jada Smith.
Jada Smith who?
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
All right.
That's all I got for that. I had those pre-written. I was excited. My O's are a little too loud. At the end of the day, whatever. These motherfuckers are all crazy, but Chris Rock is a talented motherfucker, man. What's up?
I mean, just honestly, I feel like it has to be said.
What's up?
But for anyone who doesn't know what the fuck we're talking about.
True.
Like, if you're not American, I guess, I feel like American people are mostly
Norway.
Yeah, our Norway listeners, if you don't know what's happening.
Our couple of Norway listeners, our literal couple of Norway listeners.
But fucking Will Smith walked up to Chris Rock up on the Oscars.
Yeah.
And said, well, blam.
For a joke that he laughed at about his wife.
Yeah.
Having, shaved head. And so a couple interesting things did come out of that. I forget what it's called, like alopecia or something like that. Let me look it up so I don't sound like an idiot. But it's interesting because of that, a lot of attention was brought towards the alopecia. That's what it's called. When people lose hair, it can affect your scalp, your entire body. It can be temporary or permanent. It can be hereditary. It causes hormonal changes, all that stuff, medical conditions. But it's interesting because Chris Rock also has a mental disability.
Okay.
And this came about afterwards too. And I'm going to look at it right now just because, again, I didn't really want to get into this. But his thing is NVLD, which is a nonverbal learning disorder diagnosis. And it basically kind of, it's an early sign of either Asperger's or schizophrenia, one of those things.
Oh, wow.
And what the disability, disables is his ability to recognize social cues and all that stuff. So, in a way, Will Smith smacked the disabled man, but also it brought a lot of attention to all that stuff, And
I mean, this is the first I'm hearing.
Yeah, man, and I saw it earlier, and I didn't think it mattered just because that whole thing is just ridiculous. And we were talking earlier about like Will Smith's future and how he would go with this, but like you said, he's a famous person. So at the end of the day, fuck those guys, like focus on yourself, have your opinions and shit. But, I don't care. I don't care what you have to say about that stuff. You, Javi, I care, but all these other people, I don't really care.
I mean, I don't really have much of an opinion on the whole situation. I didn't even know that it happened until the morning after.
You're not Team Jada?
So my mom came back the following morning and
she slapped the shit out of you.
She came over to me like literally as I'm waking up.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh my God, have you been seeing everything about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock?"
Yeah.
And me half like awake, I'm like, "What?" And I just went back to sleep.
Actually, it's hilarious. I fell asleep early that night, right? And I wake up in the middle of the night. I check my phone real quick and I see Will Smith, smacks. And I see the video and I'm like, well, I'm going back to sleep. Of course it was and I think it reached the most views on YouTube for a trending video within 24 hours. It's a momentous occasion. It boosted Chris Rock's career. I guess we're talking about this. But also during one of his shows in Boston, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't really address the issue. All he said was that he's still processing the situation. P. Diddy says that him and Will Smith are fine now. But a lot of people were upset with his show because he didn't address it. They wanted to hear him talk about it. Mm-hmm. The thing is that his Ego Death tour, which I would love to go see, the tickets skyrocketed apparently because of the whole situation.
Oh, wow.
Good for him. But I'm sure a lot of people are going to be anticipating jokes about Will Smith, which I'm thinking he'll do later on. But he said that he had a bunch of stuff pre-written for the tour. So he's, I kind of get both sides. As a comedian, I guess, especially a professional, you probably should make some stuff up happen towards that. Mm-hmm. But it is a bad place to put somebody who's just speaking his mind and telling jokes. You know, like where do you draw the line in terms of that? Because I just feel like you can't see anything today because now you're entitled to slap somebody if they're speaking incorrectly, if it only offends you. You know, imagine offending a racist, and the racist slaps you, and how dare you not, follow my beliefs? And it's like, wait, what? Yeah, but Will Smith did it.
Like I said, I don't really have much of an opinion. It's just kind of like, man, clearly they got issues, and like they're acting like children, and like, well, more so Will Smith. Yeah, and it's just like
true. You know what?
Just gotta go with it.
I gotta not touch that one with the 6-foot pole. Just move on. I mean, for me, I have heavy opinions on it, but I think at the end of the day, it's just a ridiculous occasion, and there's just more important things to talk about.
Yeah, like what, Frankie?
Like our sponsor, Stella Beer.
Ooh.
Just
no,
kidding.
we're not. No, we're not sponsored.
No. We wish though. It'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I don't want to lie and shit. Get our shit taken down. But I do have a couple of things I want to talk to you about today. Because if I didn't, we wouldn't have a podcast. And the 3 things I'm going to be talking about today are TikTok.
Okay.
And how it's increasing ADHD in children and lessening attention span. Basically harming the brain, or however you take it. I'm going to talk about a person who got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. His name is Shad Gaspard.
All right.
Right. And his life briefly. And then I wanted to talk about Title 42.
Title 42.
I don't know if you're familiar with that. It is.
Sounds weird.
By May 23rd, Title 42, I'll find my numbers, is going to be discontinued basically.
Okay.
And I'll get into that later, but it's a big issue, especially for the border states. Like Texas, Arizona, all those motherfuckers. I just came back from Texas though, and I'm officially a Republican, Javi. Actually, yeah.
Did you get your MAGA hat?
Oh yeah, it's actually under this hat right now. Oh, and okay. I have a Trump tattoo near my left nipple. Because when you hold your hand over while you're pledging allegiance to the Confederate flag, you want to make sure you're touching daddy.
Makes sense. Oh shit.
No, I'm kidding. But when I went to a SmackDown or WrestleMania event, right?
Yeah.
Living my dream. But when I was at the SmackDown event, I didn't mean to, peek at somebody's phone, but it was right there. And the contact name of the person that he was texting was Ice Brian.
Ice Brian.
Like, whatever the thing is called, Ice, those pieces of shit that, the poor people. Yeah, it was Ice Brian. I was like, I wonder if he would fuck with me if I would talk to or call his buddy Brian.
You really sat there and you're like, is this a friend?
Yeah. I was like, this is weird. But it was super funny. Another funny thing was this is now we're just b-holing off the bat, But it was funny because there was a lot of speeches being given, and the Undertaker, for those who don't know, is a very popular wrestler that most people do know from before, and he was being inducted to the Hall of Fame as well.
Okay.
So when people think Texas, they think conservative and all that stuff, right? So Vince McMahon, who basically runs the WWE, he was talking about Undertaker and how much he gave to the organization, and uplifted not only for the fans but for everybody else, fellow wrestlers. Okay. And he said, but the most important thing that the Undertaker has given us in the WWE is his love, his compassion. And then some lady in the back, she's like, wow, well, that's gay. And a grown-ass woman too, like not some young. But she ultimately, quiets down, and Vince McMahon continues his speech. And then Vince McMahon, like later on, says, and just like the Undertaker, we all should appreciate and value everyone, no matter who they are, what they are, and what they do. And the same lady's like, woo! And in my head, I'm like, that's so stupid, man. Like, it's just so ill-minded. You feel me? But it was just pretty hilarious, and I think I got it on camera too. So hopefully I can find it because I recorded all these shit there. But that was really funny.
That'd be cool to put in the supplementary.
But Texas is very fun. I've been to Austin and Dallas. I want to go to San Antonio in the future. And
nice.
Yeah, man. I'm going to Utah soon, so I'll see you soon, Mormons. But nonetheless, I mean, how you doing, Javi? I didn't ask that in the beginning.
No, man, I'm good. Yeah. We didn't really get to talk about this last episode because last episode we put out one of our older episodes.
Oh yeah.
And it was a pretty good episode. I thought I liked it pretty much.
Me too, man. And it was Chalino Sanchez.
Yeah, there you go.
Not Vargas. My dumb ass said Vargas. It's all good, though. It's all good. We make mistakes. We're only human.
But tomorrow I'm doing an art showcase.
Yes, you are.
And it's my first art showcase.
Oh yeah, man. Why don't you tell the people more about that and where it is and what time?
I mean, it doesn't matter because by the time this comes out,
God damn, maybe we can make it to a highlighters. But probably not. You're right.
But hey, we'll put it on the social. We'll put it on the social today or tomorrow, and just as a shout out. But yeah, that's what I got for the weekend, so I'm pretty hyped for that. It's my first ever type of showcase. It's gonna be the first time that I'll be behind the table.
Yeah, man.
Instead of outside of it.
And props to you because that shit takes a lot of balls to just go out there and really like put yourself out there and put your work out. I feel like it's very doable. And all you got to do is you have to seek out the opportunities to do so, So I hope it goes well. I hope you sell your product and shit like that, and yeah, man. I mean, you mentioned before, and I'm sure you mentioned in the podcast for more and more, but to our new listeners, what comic book writers have you met? Like, authors and like.
Oh, I've met a bunch. Yeah, I mean, I've met so many by this point.
Yeah. Name a couple. Name drop them, bitch.
Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo. I've met Tom King.
And what have those three guys done?
Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo did Batman, Court of Owls, which we've read. I've met them countless times.
Awesome.
Tom King took over Batman when Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo ended their run.
Nice.
I've met Mitch Gerrits. Mitch Gerrits is a longtime partner with Tom King. He does the art for a lot of Tom King stuff. Who else have I met? I've met Frank Miller.
Miller. I don't remember who it is. Tell me.
He's done The Dark Knight Returns. He's done 300.
300 Sparta? Like,
yeah, because that's a comic before it was ever a movie.
That I didn't know. That's fucking cool as shit. I didn't know that. The movie's ridiculous.
Crazy. I've never seen the movie.
Oh man, I was watching it one time and like it's really good in the beginning. Like it's really good. Pretty well shot for what it is, and by the middle you're like, this is ridiculous. It's like I get the Warriors were really tough and shit, but they were destroying like King Kong sized monsters. I'm like, chill. What a couple of fucking spears and shields. Nah, they would have got fucked up, man. But it's definitely a cool ass concept for sure.
Oh yeah,
as a whole, I think it's pretty dope.
Yeah, but those are like some creators that I've met over the years. I've met so many more.
That's awesome, man.
I always try and meet, like, because I go to Comic-Con every year, and I always just try and meet everyone whenever I'm there because I read a fuck ton of shit.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, I think it's important you mentioned it just because we do talk about albums and movies, but I always think the comic part of the show is the most grasping, you know, because everybody loves albums and movies. I just don't think a lot of people have access to comic books because, you know, you can, on your phone, I mean, you can download comics and stuff, but to hold one physically and read it and go to a shop and understand and everything, it's very new to me. But it's like I'm getting a new appreciation. Like going to and coming back from Dallas, I was reading Sandman 2. Nice. And I'm just, you know, getting through it. And it's just, oh my God, man. It's just so captivating. You know, that story is so weird and different. And yeah, man, it's a cool new world. And later we'll be talking about a comic for sure too, which is very interesting. Right.
Yeah. And honestly, I'll talk about it more when we do reach the comic, but definitely a lot of like inspiration for like my literal showcase tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. So, that's fucking awesome as shit.
But yeah, like, so read me your headlines again. Let's start the fucking news.
All right, let's fucking do it. So we're gonna just go one by one. So right now we're gonna talk about TikTok ticks, right? So we've all heard about this app TikTok.
I haven't.
Show over. Me and Javi don't have TikToks personally, but the social has a TikTok. Yeah. You know, and let me ask you this. Why don't you have a TikTok, like in general?
I just, it annoys me.
Yeah?
I'm just like, because, you know, honestly, sometimes even when I'm on Instagram, I'll scroll for like a little bit and I'm just like,
It's just.
Like, I look at people's stories more than I look at actual posts on Instagram because it's just much quicker and easier to do that.
Yeah.
Just because as soon as I start scrolling and I just follow so many different kinds of pages, it's just like, it just feels like such a smorgasbord of like shit. And I'm just like, whatever.
And it's time consuming. It takes, again, your time away. And the reason I don't have a TikTok, this is not to be, I don't really care about what you do with social media or like what your preference is. I just think
Frankie's judging you.
I just think that the name is ridiculous. The name is so ridiculous. You know, TikTok, it just, to me, it always sounded childish. It's a great app. I don't think it's a bad app at all. I think it's creative. All power to the creators, whatever, which is China. It's a Chinese developer who created TikTok and something else. But that's literally the only reason. I just don't like the name of it. And our good friend Jonathan, who was on the show for the last couple episodes, he said he messaged me one time and he was like, I downloaded TikTok. I want to see what it's about. Within a couple of days, he was saying like, bro, I'm addicted. Like they've got me figured out. And he's just there watching countless videos. You know, Beatrice, like she's just, you know, my girlfriend, she constantly is watching videos and she stopped using it, you know, just because it was so addicting to her, you know. So I think all that being considered, it's very easy to talk about TikTok. And I'll get more into specifics, but it's kind of like vaping. Right? Okay. Even though we've already had like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff, TikTok just has this very specific grasp. And when I think of social media, I think of algorithm, right? Because that's very much what comes into play. And what's happening here is that what I saw earlier are two things in terms of TikTok articles. That people, like teenagers are developing tics because of TikTok. And that like sexuality and all that stuff is so much involved in TikToks and all that stuff that people, especially children, are becoming more sexual because of what they're allowed to see. You know, a lot of people think that parental settings can prevent a kid from being able to access all these things. But I think if you're holding a phone already, you're fucked. You know, there's so much you can access and all this stuff. So, but this particular attention is just about attention span. So what's happening is that attention span is decreasing and ADHD rates are, attention span is decreasing, ADHD rates are increasing. Okay. Right? So kids are finding it hard to do things that are not instantly rewarding.
All right.
You know, so watching a TikTok is very rewarding because you laugh in like 10 seconds, you could laugh again, and it's just back to back to back. And again, this is not at all to ridicule, you know, people who are using, you know, we're all using these apps. It's just mainly children who are all developing. You know, the brain fully develops at, you know, 25 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean, somebody who's like 5 or 6 should be spending more time maybe doing things outside than being on their phones.
You know, I'll just say real quick that you mentioned that thing of your brain finishes developing at 25.
Yeah.
I know, I used to know a guy that was kind of a mess.
Okay.
And like I would tell other people about him sometimes of like, I don't know, this guy is just like, he does this and he does that. Yeah. I'm not gonna like get into the details of it because that'd be kind of shitty. But like,
you just shit on him the whole show.
And I just, because I'd be dumbfounded by the things this guy would do. And like people would ask me like, oh, and how old is he and whatever. I'm like, like he's 25. And like one person finally told me, he's like, well, maybe he'll get his shit together this year.
Because science. Yeah, man, I'm some real shit. When I learned that, taking classes and shit in a couple of years back, I was like, nah, by 25 I'll be good. And fucking shit's okay right now. So, not that I'm 25 or anything. I'm 17.
You don't look a day over 70.
I'm 10, bro. I'm 10 years old. No, I'm 25 years old. For people who are wondering. So my brain is fully developed. I'm the most mature motherfucker in the world, this and that.
You're technically more mature than me.
I'm more developed.
You're more developed than me by like months.
But drinking this beer, maybe I'm set back. Maybe by 27 I'll really be on top tier Frankie.
27 is your 25.
basically. So the short video format and things like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube are making any activity that doesn't offer instant gratification difficult to partake in. I remember a while back I said that in the food delivery service episode, that Uber owns like Postmates, Drizzly, Uber Eats. Yeah. And you were shocked by that, as I was too when I found that out. And in China, there's an app called Douyin, which is basically China's version of TikTok.
Okay.
And both TikTok and Douyin are developed by ByteDance, a Chinese developer.
All right.
This is just a side note. Trump wanted to ban TikTok in the United States because he feared that China would use that to gain information on Americans. I don't know if you're familiar with the phone Huawei.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Huawei was also banned in the United States, even though I heard amazing things from the phone. Beatrice's father had a Huawei phone before. She said it was really great, even for its early, development back then.
Yeah.
I don't know what year, but I've never seen a phone like that.
Huawei phones are pretty well made for the most part. Yeah. And like, especially since it's been banned from the US, it's just kind of like a shitty thing in terms of like the tech world, where it's like, this is such a good product, but it's only available in China.
That's so interesting. And then I think about, I've seen some anime movies recently. I saw Jujutsu Kaisen, which is really good, but I also saw a movie called Bell, Belle. The Jujutsu movie was great. Like, it was a fun, good movie. Really fucking good. Especially if you're not used to watching those things in the theaters. But the Bell movie I saw, and it's something about, like, first of all, anime, because they were both anime movies. And just the visuals I seen in that film were so beautiful and breathtaking. And it was basically a modern rendition of Beauty and the Beast.
Nice.
Right? But it was so well done where I was baffled. I was a little hungover. But it was a great, great movie. And a lot of people say that Japanese, cartoonists or, animators and all that stuff really have that down. It's just its own different style. So I was really happy to see it. I really recommend it. It's called Belle, Belle. It's an anime format, so check it out. Great fucking movie. But back to TikTok. So look, the same parts of the brain that are involved in addiction are stimulated when videos that are suggested to you in a social media's algorithmic suggestion. Like, basically, when the algorithm suggests you videos, you're getting the same sensation as if you were addicted to something.
I was gonna say, because it's like when you mentioned, it's like, oh, you laugh every 10 seconds or whatever. It's like, it's an immediate
dopamine is really released.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. It's like an immediate release of dopamine every 10 seconds,
and that happens mainly when TikTok suggests videos that you're accustomed to watching that you prefer to watch. Many times, and I'm of course guilty of it. Even when I was in Texas, like, we were in a patio area with just me and Beatrice, and some guy came and he just sat down, smoked a cigarette, and he just played his videos, and it was just those sounds that everybody knows, like the Oh No song and all that stuff. And I've seen this action so many times, and it's just, again, I don't want to deem it odd, because I think we're all guilty of it in our own way. Because I don't watch videos that have, they have sound bites now. Right. Yeah. I just watch videos that are like funny that I've never seen before, but I catch myself for like 10 minutes just laughing, sending videos to my friends, to laugh at. And realistically, there's better use for that time, but I don't think that phones are a terrible thing, neither social media. There's a lot of information to provide through that, but I do have friends that are also big conspiracists that get those videos and take it as truth when it's very vague and just, one-sided and all that stuff. So it's dangerous.
I'll say, as an example of that, there was one time where I had seen someone on my social media post a picture of like a race thing that
like
yeah, it was a picture of a cool fucking race car of Lightning McQueen doing a backflip.
And you were like, what the fuck, man?
I was like, Lightning McQueen fucking sucks.
I hate Cars.
Cars 2 is the best movie.
Tater. What is his name? The Larry the Cable Guy?
Mater.
Okay, but you saw somebody post about race?
It was like a picture taken from the segregation era.
Okay.
And it basically replaced like the colored water fountains.
With COVID vaccine and vaccine. Yes, I've seen that before too.
And like I remember seeing that, and I clicked on the post, and then I was looking in the comments, and people were like, I can't believe like they're doing this and this and that and whatever. It's like, oh my God. And it's like, oh man.
And it's offensive. It's offensive to people who've actually been segregated against and, you know, experienced that whole experience, which was terrible for, you know, especially black people in America. And not only black people, Japanese people, they're, you know, put in camps because of Pearl Harbor and all that stuff. And in Mexicans today, you know, and everybody, I mean, there's sections of people that are really dealing with that stuff. And I won't lie, when I first saw that, it's not that I really fell into it and said like, oh no, that's the truth. I just also looked at the comments, and it was a bunch of, you know, conspiracy, like, you know, followers of that, you know, ideology. And they were like, yeah, man, I can't believe it. Like, that's really the new world today. It really is going to be that. Like, I can't go to the park. And it's just really weird. I don't care what the opinion on vaccinations is, this or that. It just really isn't that serious. It may have seemed so at the beginning because everybody was fluctuating in terms of one state to the other, what you can and can't do. It seems like things are easing up now. I think we're eventually going to be at maskless all over the states.
Yeah.
But
we're waiting on like Hawaii and like another like state, right?
Silly Hawaiians. I'm just kidding. But yeah, looking back at it now, there's no way you can be comparing, you know, vaccinated and anti-vaxxers. I just think how the government handled things is why people lean towards that way, especially when people were either forced to be vaccinated or get fired from their jobs, which was later reversed. That's ridiculous, you know? And it just all comes down to what your opinion is. But at the end of the day, you weren't hung for not being vaccinated. You know, you weren't lynched. You weren't, you know, all that real heavy stuff that really happened in the United States. Anyway, back to TikTok. Because Google has this function where autoplay is disabled for users under the age 18.
Okay.
And TikTok does something where after 9 p.m., if you're between 13 and 15, it won't send you notifications anymore. So those are the little steps. And it also reminds the user to take a break. And for me, I was wondering, like, how effective is that stuff? It seems like it's effective on paper to protect their company and their interests, you know, make them seem like the good guys trying to be like, no, we want kids to be better. But I don't know if you remember this, when Nickelodeon back in the day shut off their channel for like an hour or two.
For like Earth Day or something like that.
It was, aside Earth Day, it was Get Up and Play.
That's what it was, yeah.
And it was me and my sister, I remember we were younger, we were like, what the fuck is this? Like, we're trying to watch some cartoons. So we're like, damn, should we get up and play? No, we just changed the channel. You know? And
I remember one time when I noticed it, like the first time I noticed it that was happening, I almost didn't believe it. I was like, they're literally not going to play anything. And I waited.
You did the hand gesture?
And I waited. Yeah. And then they didn't play anything.
Play shit, bro.
And I was like, damn.
And pretty progressive by Nickelodeon, to be honest with you. Like, that was pretty dope. I just really think that you can't do that on a TV network, because there really is like Cartoon Network or Disney Channel or just like free, you know, channels and shit, or just the news. You know, I don't think that's really encouraging. It is a step, though. It is a step in the right direction.
I will say the sort of message of like, take a break. That doesn't do shit.
It doesn't do shit. Like, it doesn't do nothing.
I think of the Wii.
Oh yeah, they used to do that too, right?
And I would never take a fucking break. I keep fucking bowling.
It pops up, beep. All right, whatever. I'll do it later.
I'll take a break when I'm ready. God damn it.
Never ready. And so when you do things like read and, you know, solve math, you use directed attention. And what directed attention is the ability to inhibit distractions and sustain attention. Okay. And that is very, very much being prevented, you know, in terms of development for children. Again, we mentioned it earlier. When watching a TikTok that's funny or amusing, dopamine is released. the other times when dopamine gets released is not only with drugs, but when you eat delicious food and when you work out.
I thought you were gonna say sex.
Sex too. It could be a workout too. Sex on drugs, ultra dopamine.
I mean, you know, if you have really crazy sex, that's a workout.
While eating crazy food.
And
watching TikTok.
And while on drugs, while watching TikTok.
Yo, that's like, okay, number one doctors in America recommend fucking watching TikTok, addicted to drugs. And what else? What else should we throw in there? Having sex. Food. And what's the last thing we should throw in there? And put it, cleaning your Q-tips. Yeah. That shit feels really good. Oh, yeah. Number one doctor recommended. Best dopamine release in the world.
Let's get that on a box.
And again, the reason I wanted to compare it to vaping is because this is still under research overall, meaning you can't really confirm all this. It's kind of just hypothesis, realistically, all jokes aside. And that's why I think of vaping, because before we saw vaping as one of the media displayed vaping as an alternative that's healthier and better and all that stuff compared to smoking cigarettes, which arguably isn't really the worst thing in the world. I think South Park does a great take on the cigarettes. I don't know if you've ever seen the episode.
I don't think I've seen it.
It's a great episode, and I'm not gonna promote cigarettes either, especially for children that are underage to whatever people deem that as. It's just freedom of choice, I think, is ultimately the best thing. I just think that the deception that came with Juuls and vapes saying that it's better for you, it really isn't. Even smoking those like weed pens, weed is for sure better than tobacco in terms of health risks.
Yeah, with weed pens there are carcinogens.
Yeah,
and carcinogens,
and the cheap one,
can like mess you up.
Exactly. And you ever hit one of those things? Them shits are strong as fuck. I've met many of people who are like, let me just take one hit. And they are gunzos.
I remember seeing my friend sent me a tweet where it said the bouncer at this club or whatever asked for a hit of my weed pen, and I told him it was really strong medicinal weed, and that he should wait till after his shift to take the hit. Bouncer. And he was like, I'm good. He took the hit, and the next ID that he looked at, he used his two fingers to try and zoom in on it.
I'm not high. How dare you? That's pretty fucking funny. Fuck that guy, man. Letting 7-year-olds into the bar and shit. That's mad funny. Well, them shits are strong. They're fun and shit, but smoke flower, smoke actual bud, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know anything about that. I don't want to sound like I know what I'm talking about in terms of your inner organ, lung, and health and stuff. But, a cigarette is nice once in a while. I think so.
Never had a cigarette.
You gotta have one at least once, bro.
I've had spliffs. But
Spliffs are nice too. Like a little mole in the bong. You ever did that?
I think my friends have done that before. It's I just kind of went with it.
Everybody's like, shut up. Stop talking about weed. Talk about TikTok. All right, I will. There's a very good quote by James Williams, a tech ethicist and author of a book called Stand Out of Our Light, Freedom and Resistance in the Attention Economy. So he wrote a book.
That's a title and a half.
Yeah. And he says, it's like we've made kids in a candy store. Sorry. It's like we've made kids live in a candy store and then we tell them to ignore all of that candy and eat a plate of vegetables. We have an endless flow of immediate pleasures that's unprecedented in human history. And it's true. A lot of people say that the solution isn't just to take away phones immediately, because it's not true. I don't think you can wean a child off like that, because it's going to be surrounded everywhere we go. And I'm pretty sure a better solution to the future of education, which is just purely my opinion, is that instead of textbooks, we should probably have like iPads in schools and stuff.
I saw a story on the news where some kid, a kid and his mom made a deal that he wouldn't use social media until he turned 18 or something. Okay. And she gave him like a bunch of money for it.
Interesting. That's kind of weird.
And he did it. And like the kid was like, it was totally worth it. Definitely like kept me more focused on my shit and this and that and whatever. Like he said, like the worst thing was that like it kept him out of the loop socially. Yeah. But other than that, he was like, yeah, I don't regret it.
That's awesome. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think the substitute or the reward of money, I just think it should be more, like, hey, just don't do that. Like, how about we just stay away from that and go to work, without having to be
in
rewarded.
an ideal
Yeah.
world.
These rich motherfuckers. But it's funny you bring that up because I saw a post where I don't know how true this is because, you know, fame and celebrities, but apparently Selena Gomez gave up the internet for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And she said that it changed her life doing so. So I didn't look into that just because I don't believe it. I think that's kind of impossible.
I feel like there was definitely a good moment where she was just off the radar.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I haven't heard of her at all, you know. So
like, there was definitely like, you know, Wizards of Waverly Place.
Yeah.
She did her music.
Yeah, man.
And then
her makeup and shit and
then something happened that I just didn't hear from her. And then now she has like a TV show and this and that.
I didn't know she had a TV show. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, even then, I just think it's so hard to stay away from, you know, the internet. It's just difficult. Even if you walk around New York City, there's towers giving you free Wi-Fi. You know, you can connect your phone. I remember when they released, for those who don't know that don't live in New York City, not on every block, but on multiple blocks, especially in the city, there's little like poles, I guess, or anything. And you can make free phone calls. You can connect to Wi-Fi. You can charge your phone. I mean, best time to be homeless in New York City. Just kidding.
Homeless people love it.
Yeah. And actually, just to sidetrack, Eric Adams, our mayor, he's definitely taking initiative to like impact the homeless situation. And one of them was actually by the BQE in Williamsburg. He on a very cold day, he got rid of a lot of homeless people's tents. And
I remember
stuff.
seeing that.
And I'm conflicted on the situation just because it's a hard thing to have a stance on.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that I'm for Eric Adams. I mean, I was with him at a comedy show when I saw, you know, Tracy Morgan. So I guess we're like best friends.
Yeah.
By now.
I mean, I'm surprised you didn't bring him for the show.
He wanted to come, but he was busy.
Oh,
yeah. So I just rubbed his bald head. I'm like, it's okay, Eric.
Gave it a little kiss
on the ear, so he could hear my love. When we did that, I just see people pushing towards like, hey, we need to stop this and we need to help homelessness. But I think the solution to homelessness is very difficult. I don't disagree that we should help the homeless. Of course we should. You know, they're living in terrible situations. It just doesn't seem as simple as it is, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened to those people after the tents got taken down. I just know that once you take those pictures, it can seem worse than what it is. Maybe they were helped. Maybe they were given this and that. It's just very interesting. But I don't think Eric Adams is a very good mayor so far. I just think he can improve in so much more ways. But I don't know anything about that.
I don't super keep up with what he does with the city and whatnot, but I definitely saw that. And
yeah.
I definitely agree where it's just like the issue of homelessness is such a hard stance to take. Yeah. And I'm not going to get into the detail of that. But
I'm not touching that one with a 7-foot pole. No, but actually somebody we know came back from Colorado and they said to me that Colorado was very beautiful because of the nature and stuff, but there was a bunch of homeless people to the point where they've had to close down parks or like capitals or something like that, like city halls and everything, because homeless people would just take over that area and just, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I was in California, this is the immediate thought that I got coming back from California. I said, everybody talks about how great California is, but they never mention the homelessness ever.
Oh,
even though it's predominant there for sure.
I feel like the homelessness is, especially in LA, is like so synonymous. Like you think of LA, I mean, at least for me,
no, for sure.
I think of LA, I think of homelessness.
Man, I wish I could describe to you, and I didn't want to take videos. I didn't want to be disrespectful, being like, wow, you know. But as you go and every block, even in Austin, when I was in Austin, no, Austin there's some homelessness, but it's not as frequent as California. It was amazing. It was amazing to every block, and those pictures you see of tents, you know, absorbing the whole block were incredible. And I say that because it's true. I just couldn't believe it. Again, I don't know how they deal with that over there, but this is not TikTok.
I'll just say one last thing.
Say one last thing.
There was one time working at Ben and Jerry's, where we had a little I don't know like what's the technical term for it, but like, you know, those little entrance gates that are on the sidewalk that like you open it up and you go down.
Oh, okay, I guess.
And you go underneath.
Yeah, like those things you walk over and you're scared of falling into.
Yeah, those things.
Yeah.
So we had one of those for the store because we had a little alleyway right outside the back.
Okay.
And so we would take our trash out through there and all that shit.
Yeah.
And we had a lock on that gate. I shit you not. One time, that lock was not locked. And it was a cold winter night.
Oh man.
And when I opened and I noticed that the gate was open.
No man, no way.
And when I went down the stairs, there were tens of homeless people sleeping in the little alleyway, just all across the floor.
I can't blame them, man, especially on a cold New York City night.
And I was just like, I didn't know what to do. I was shook. I was like, oh my God.
You were like, hey yo, get out of here. Nah, I'm fucking.
But all I did was that I fucking walked back up the stairs.
Yeah.
I left the gate open and I opened the store and I was like, I'm just gonna let them sleep it off.
That's very nice of you, man.
And you know, when they wake up, they'll leave. And all
with cones of ice cream. It was great.
But I was like, yo, that's insane.
Yeah, it is. It is. And yeah, man. So ultimately, I know there's a lot of sidetracking for this TikTok shit, just because I feel that this whole TikTok situation is just very predictable. It's inevitable, and I think with the whole metaverse coming soon and everything, I don't think it'll be stopped in its tracks. I think we're just gonna get more, again, absorbed in it and become a part of it. I jokingly, but unjokingly, I brought up earlier at work how I think one of the coolest attachments in the future that will exist are a flashlight in your hand. Because, you know, when you wake up and it's dark, what do you grab? Your phone for the flashlight. So imagine having some flashlight in your fingertips or in the palm of your hand, some Iron Man shit.
I mean, like,
just click and just boom.
There's a company that's officially working on the first ever contact lens like AR like headset, basically.
Yeah, man.
And like immediately I think of like the Futurama iPhone episode.
Or they stick it into their eyes.
Yeah, but it also maybe in the future you just blink your eyes and your eyes are the flashlight.
Yeah, seriously. Or something, but that's 100% going to happen. I think once people start installing tools into their body, then they'll start installing that Neuralink into their brains.
It's like Cyberpunk.
I never played Cyberpunk. I've only heard about it.
I never finished it. I played a little bit of it, but it was too buggy for me to get through.
That's what I hear. I wish they had waited longer to put that out, because the anticipation kind of didn't meet the ends. Basically. And yeah, so if you know you're still following this TikTok story, which the reason I mention it like that is just because it's so interesting, and I think these studies that are going to be confirmed later as they watch these kids grow with the social media will just confirm what they already thought, how effective it could be. And in a way, I think it could be advantageous in terms of getting information out there. It could inform people on much more things, topics, but it can also expose you to much more dangerous things, you know, that are not good for kids to see. For example, and I'm sure a lot of people are like this, I saw a motherfucker getting his head cut off when I was in middle school, and that shit fucked me up. And I have friends who watched that like nothing, you know, but for me, it was crazy. It was some cartel video cutting like some ladies' head off, then some guys' head off, and things like the Pain Olympics. I don't know if you heard about that. Gee Christ, bro. That's fucking crazy, man. So those are real traumatic things to witness.
And that's the internet.
Facts.
And I feel like there's just not a lot that can be done of parental control on the internet. It's like you can do everything you can. Like I think Nintendo does a pretty good job.
If only Nintendo ruled the world.
Because they make it annoying. Yeah. Because you literally have to sign in every time you want to buy something on the store.
Every time.
Every goddamn time. So you could just set the password to something only you know, and your kid could never fucking buy anything.
Fuck them kids.
And that's like, it's annoying when you're not a child, but it works.
But people get around it, especially children. Children are so clever, man. Like people that I know remember their debit card number. And they'll just type it in.
I used to remember my debit card number. Then I had to get a new one. Now I have to memorize my new one.
I used to remember it too before I lost my shit 7 times. And now I'm like, fuck it, whatever. It'll just be on the card. So what experts suggest to combat this ADHD increase and attention span, you know, decrease is by, you know, with your children, have in-person time by playing in the park, hikes, eating together without any screens around. And then I thought of a weird idea, but let me continue with the list. Set time frames for device use, parental settings on social media, which, you know, are what they are. And also ensuring that kids and us get a good night's sleep, because it's crucial for focus and attention. So many people stay up, you know, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. I'm sure you do and stuff. And without that, you're not able to function to your 100% the next day. and it's very underrated sleep, but get that shit, especially for children that are developing, for sure. And this I wrote down earlier. I wouldn't have remembered if I wrote it down. But do you think in the future there will be people who are internet users and non-internet users? So you know how we said like vaccinated, non-vaccinated. You think in the future it'll be like, oh, I don't use internet at all, man. I'm not part of that regime. You know, I don't follow into that crowd. And then,
I mean, there's some people like that
for sure.
Like there's this really amazing show called High Maintenance on HBO.
Okay, I remember you bringing this up.
You should really watch that show.
I might check
love
it. You've brought it up many times, so I just might.
And the show's an anthology series, so every episode is about a different person. And there is one episode about this one guy that gets inspired by another stranger that he sees. And the whole show takes place in New York City.
Okay.
This guy, he's super into the social media life. He works in a coffee shop on his laptop every day and this and that. And one day he's sitting there and he's getting overwhelmed by all the notifications and this and that and whatever. And he looks out the window and he sees some dude using a flip phone.
Yeah.
And he's like, wow. And he's looking at that guy like that guy has it all figured out. So he decides to stop using technology like that and gets a flip phone. Yeah. And it's just a mess. He like can't function properly. Yeah. Like his texts are garbage and this and that and whatever. It's
back when you had to press the button 3 times to get the letter you want.
Yeah, like his
some motherfuckers don't even know about that shit.
His texts were garbage because of that. Like there's they have a moment where he's putting out a text and the camera just sits there for a second. Yeah. And it's awesome. It's really good. He tries so hard, but it shows how difficult it is to like really detach yourself from the internet.
Absolutely. And there are civilizations right now that live without it. I mean, third world countries that don't have it. I think recently, and this is I don't know exactly when, but India just received internet for the whole country. Oh wow! So I think that's very crucial. And one of the, I guess, theories I had or hypotheses or whatever, just because I like to use that word, I thought that religion would decrease in India because everybody has access to the internet now. I think once you have access to the internet, you have at least access to different opinions.
So if you use the internet, you're a rock and roll atheist.
Basically, I mean, you get 100%. They also have plastic bags with milk that that they sell. That disallowed the sun to let it expire or something like that. It's very interesting. In India, man. Fucking cool. I just learned actually right now is Ramadan, and I actually learned the difference between Ramadan for Hindus and Muslims. Okay. I didn't know that. I'm not going to get specific, so I don't want to fuck shit up. But there's a difference, folks. And thank you to Spencer actually for shouting that out to me. So nice. But when it comes down to the internet thing in India and religion, I just think that when you expose anyone to information, they can at least hear other people's voices out. Why do I feel this way about God, and what is God, and what do other people have to say about God? I think a lot of times people who are teaching religion don't want you to hear other people's opinions on it because you might, turn away from Christ or Allah or whatever the fuck you believe in, all those ghosts. And I think that's cool. So that's like my whole theory on it. It's pretty recent, so I wonder if it will decrease. I think in the future, in a very, very futuristic world, there will be no religion.
I mean, that's definitely a concept in some like sci-fi stories for sure, of like there's just no religion.
There can't be with I think that's the beauty of religion though, the faith part of it. Because sometimes you can argue with somebody who believes in God all you want, but they're not going to give up their faith. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but the story of Job. You know that story?
Story of
Job, like
Job.
J-O-B, but his name is pronounced Job.
No.
It's long story short, it's a very, very popular story. You'll see in like even South Park or just a whole bunch of movies and stuff. Daredevil. It basically tells the story of a man who believes in God, and some guy comes up to him and he says, "Oh no, actually, God and the devil are talking." Okay. And God says, "Look at Job. Job, he praises me no matter what. He loves me, and every day he prays to me, and he loves me and nonstop, right?" And then the devil says, "Well, look at Job. You've given him a beautiful family, a beautiful farm to raise, cattle on and make money and land to live on. With all these things, he wouldn't praise you. He's only praising you because you've given him the things to love and live life lavishly, right?" So God takes away his wife. He kills his family. And Job prays to him and says, "I know I lost my family, but thank you, God. Thank you. I still have my cattle. I still have my land." So then God takes away his cattle. And he's like, okay, I lost my wife and my cattle, but thank you, God. Like I still have my land and, you know, stuff to survive on. And then God takes away his land. And he's like, thank you, God. Like I still have my life, my health. I'm still okay. And then that was like, but he still has his life. He's still okay. So the God just basically brings him this flood of lava, this flood of like Armageddon. Okay. And Job climbs to a tree and he's like, no matter what, God, I will never give up my faith on you. I will never, you know, this and that. And a lot of people like to say that story and be like, well, God's an asshole. You know, like he took away all this shit from this innocent guy and all that stuff. But then I heard a very beautiful thing and I forget where. But I think the whole point of that story is not to take it literally, but to show how strong faith is. And we were talking about homelessness. And think about somebody who is homeless, genuinely, who really got caught in just some bad situations that were not their fault at all. And all they do have is that gold cross across their chest. And because of that, they're able to have some happiness and occupy their mind with faith and feel like somebody is listening. Because how many times do you acknowledge the homeless person in New York City?
I mean, I don't.
You know, right? Even Louis C.K. has a beautiful joke where he has somebody, his sister comes to New York City from Pennsylvania, and she comes in from the terminal in Port Authority. And the sister, she's a homeless man, and the homeless man is covered in piss and all that stuff. And he's like, "Help! Can I get $1?" And the lady's like, the sister, she's like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Like, what can I get you some food? Can I get you an ambulance? Can I get you anything?" And Louis C.K. is like, "Oh no, we don't do that here." Like, you know, you just walk past them and ignore him.
Familiar. I think you might have told me.
Yeah, it's a great joke. The only reason I say it now is to go to the point back to Job and that whole story, how literal you're not supposed to take it, how these stories are there for you to interpret as you do.
Yeah, I mean, even as an atheist, I don't interpret the story as like, oh, God's an asshole. Yeah. I interpret that story of like, it's literally a test of faith. Yeah,
and how much it can be the only thing you have that gets you through the worst of situations. We may not be put through Armageddon, but even losing somebody to like cancer or enduring like a robbery or just you losing a loved one or a pet, you know, just sometimes people have, you know, faith to get them through all that shit. And you know, I'm not gonna hate on that. You know, I'm just saying that in the future, when it comes to logic and all that stuff, that it could lessen religion more so and more so the more it goes on, especially how media portrays it.
Like I said on this show before, whatever gets you up and out of bed in the morning.
That's super true too, and that's keep your own opinions to yourself type shit. You know, just live your life, and yeah, it's a Beho episode.
Oh yeah, we are all over the place this episode.
Yeah, man. In the last episode, we explained what the Beho is, and if you're a new listener, it's pretty dope. It's pretty dope because it came off so genuine. Like we really were gonna name it.
When I was listening to it, I was like, "Oh my God, is this happening?"
Let's do a flashback right here in the video. It'll be there. Anyway, we're back. And for the listeners and not the visual watchers, which I got to put out those episodes, we basically started ranting and we were going to call it the rabbit hole. And then we went to the first one before Beaver?
You forgot it was called the rabbit hole, so you called it the beaver hole.
The beaver hole. And then you were like, fuck the beaver hole. Let's go to the bee hole.
Yeah.
So that's where our, you know, rants and tangents go on to the bee hole. Which is a great concept. Number one.
and it really solidifies a great characteristic of our show.
Yeah, so it really does.
We don't look like a couple of assholes just like rambling. Just
chat. At least we have a little, you know,
we got a name for it.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
We're beholing.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to move on to the second story. And the reason I brought up the second story is because I was in Dallas and I saw the Hall of Fame induction. And just to give a little background, like I'm not as big as of a WWE fan as when I was like 12, you know, 10, you know, 9, whatever. But there are huge fans all over the world. And that stadium, it was AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. And that shit was filled to the brim. I'm telling you, it was so packed in there and I was sitting floor seats. Shout out to me.
I love how you hesitated, like shout out me.
and I looked up and I was like, I cannot imagine not only performing, but the Cowboys play there, the football Cowboys. I cannot imagine performing in front of that many people. You know, that's so many fucking. You ever been to a baseball game?
Yeah.
Oh man, you see how many people are around just watching you? Gabriel Iglesias just sold out Dodger Stadium in LA.
Oh wow.
He's the first comedian, I think, not only to ever perform, but to sell out Dodger Stadium.
Wow.
And I can't imagine the pressure on him to go out there and tell some jokes. You know, I saw him in Radio City Music Hall, and it was awesome. It was sold out. I saw a couple of empty seats, but I'm not gonna say anything. But imagine just throwing a football or something, or even performing music.
You know? I feel like because I I feel like I would say in sports, it's almost a little easier to tune out or zone out.
That's
the
true
audience,
too, for sure.
Because like you're more focused on the game itself. But I would say that like probably, especially in sports like baseball, when it's like when everyone's going like, hey, when that one swing is coming up,
hey, so wing,
like
you know,
that
all
kind
that
of shit.
Yeah,
it's
man.
like I'm sure that definitely puts pressure on the players sometimes. But I feel like in general, like comparatively, there's a lot more pressure on a comedian.
Oh,
like,
for sure,
because it's a direct threat. Sure. Like he can't ignore the audience.
Yeah, and there's so many on the people. Audience. God damn, and the only time I'll disagree is with FIFA, like soccer, because those motherfuckers play countries. I mean, there's videos, and this will definitely put up. There's videos of it's not only Mexico, but the crowd collapsing, like the actual like seats collapse because there's so many people, and people die throughout those things. And this is actually an incredibly sad scene that happened not too recently. Apparently, in a game in Mexico, it might have been Mexico or clubs within the Mexico organization. So not like a country's team, kind of teams within the teams like Guadalajara and all that stuff. Something happened, and there was a bunch of fights that broke out in the stadium. And if you watch the videos, they're like fighting people. People got killed. Just to sum it up, in the videos that I saw, some guy was getting beat up, hit in the face as he was unconscious. He was getting his clothes taken off, and they were still beating him up, kicking him in the stomach. And that was happening to multiple people, man, just because of gang violence and gang fights and all that stuff. And it was incredibly sad, especially when you look at that being an area for sports. And I know people think of Mexico, they think of cartels and everything, but I mainly think about, which is not the reason for sure, I can't really say, but it comes back to having alcohol involved in sports stadiums. Like, what if that broke out because somebody got a little too drunk and started talking shit, and that could very much be a thing. And this is not, again, not to go into a big tangent, but I saw a video of a kid with his father, and the ladies in front of him, I guess one of them got upset, and she threw a beer in front of the father's face. So the father got really upset, and the son immediately started crying. And he was angry. He wasn't retaliating physically at all, or throwing or spitting, or like, I would have spit on that bitch. I'm not gonna lie. Like, if you throw a beer at me, for no reason too, supposedly, I don't know. But his son started crying immediately, and he was just like, "Can you get her out of here? Like, can you please get her out of here?" I don't know the context, but just things like that happen all the time. And I mean, I'm not saying if she could have thrown a Coke also, but the fact that she was drinking a beer, who's to say that wasn't impacted by her,
of course,
sobriety. So it's very, very interesting. And now that we're moving on to sports,
not her sobriety, her inebriation.
Oh, facts. Well, I guess same shit. You know what I mean? Like her lack of sobriety. Nice. We correct each other on Earth Minor Matter. So I want to talk about a person that I showed you a video of before, man. And his name is Shad Gaspard. SHAD, last name GASPARD.
Not Vargas.
Shut up. Shut up, homie. It was one time. I'm sorry, Charlie. He's dead anyway, so he'll never hear either. But his business is great. Should look up Charlino Sanchez. Anyway, when I was at the Hall of Fame thing, I was there for Undertaker, but there was this guy who got inducted to the Hall of Fame posthumously. So Shad Gaspard is not with us anymore. He's dead.
Oh,
and
okay.
That's why I showed you the video, because before the episode started, I showed Javi a very heartfelt video of Shad and his son, and how much of a duo they were, how much of a team they were, and how together they were all the time. And first of all, having both parents in your life, or having a parent or anything in your life, a guardian, is a very special thing. And the reason I wanted to bring him up is because I guess it's recent news in the sense that he got inducted into Hall of Fame for WWE, which he was a professional wrestler. But I wanted to talk about the things he's done in the past. And, I wouldn't bring him up for no reason. And yeah, so he has a couple stories, and I'm going to name 3 that kind of crowned him with this title of hero. Because there are people in the world who I think are heroes. A lot of people don't agree with it, but I think even cops are heroes, firemen are heroes, doctors are heroes. I know politically everybody's confused, especially by the actions of certain cops. Derek Chauvin, you bitch ass. And a whole bunch of other people. Kim Potter, that bitch who killed the guy in the front seat of the car when she yelled taser and shot him in the, killed him. I don't know. I don't use the word bitch loosely, but she only got like 4 years in prison for killing a young man, even though she's on the force for like 10 plus years. Come on, bro. A yelling taser, pulls out a gun. I think that's fair. Anyway, I'm not gonna get too it's too crazy.
Calm down.
Brought to you by Stella. I only say that because it's really true, and I do feel those things towards those people in particular. You know, I don't care. I'm not gonna talk cops because there's no reason to do so right now. But those people in particular, Derek Chauvin and Kim Powder, they deserve the punishment they get and more. You know, look them up if you haven't heard about them. But Shad Gaspard was a WWE wrestler. And one of the things he did when he was, you know, with his wife and child, this is a very small thing, but their dog escaped from the house.
Okay.
So for 2 months, he was searching for his dog.
It was a Chihuahua, right?
I think so. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. Because, you know, I think they had 2 dogs, so it might have been a different one, but it could have been the Chihuahua we saw in the video. Apparently for 2 months, they were searching for the dog. And after a while, he was driving one day and he saw his dog. So he got into a high-speed chase on the highway, and his wife was telling the story during the induction in the Hall of Fame. So she said, and he did a couple of things that I can't mention in the speech right now because it would, you know, and he eventually got his dog back to safety. So that was pretty cool, you know, a little heartfelt story. But in 2016, at a gas station, he prevented an armed robbery happening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he, December 11th, 2016, Shad Gaspard and his tag team partner Crime Time, they stopped at a gas station in Carroll Springs after a wrestling show, and Shad went into the gas station to buy a drink, and somebody said, "Hey man, like I'm gonna rob the store right now. You should probably get out of here." And he pulled a gun out on Shad. So basically, what Shad did is apprehended the person, knocked the gun out of his hand, and held him there until the cops came. And what he had to say about it, he said, "I thought it was a real gun the entire time, and honestly, I just didn't want anyone to get hurt." And he added, "I just kept thinking about how I wanted to make sure I got home to my son." That's what he said. So,
man, the balls on that guy to walk up to, because I saw the video.
Yeah,
that guy's massive.
Yeah, he's fucking huge, bro.
I don't think a gun is gonna kill him.
He just shoots and he's like, Anyway,
like,
yeah, man,
the balls on that guy. Holy shit.
But I think ultimately it's how people react in certain situations. You know, you have the standby effect where some people are like, "Why didn't they help?" And it's just like, you don't understand what it's like to be in a situation. I don't understand what it's like to be in a situation where somebody's having a gun out and you're not going to be the one to...
I once stood next to a friend that was getting jumped.
Oh, okay. How was that?
It was definitely really intense because it happened from a kid from our high school.
Okay, we won't mention his name.
Yeah, of course.
Smith. Chris Rock.
But we were just on the train platform, and it was me, my friend, and another friend of ours, and we're just talking, and then this dude just walks up to my friend, and my friend is kind of like a sneakerhead and whatever.
Yeah.
So he's got like a snapback and this and that, and he's got some nice sneakers on, and just very casually on the train platform, it's just like, run me your stuff, and that's it. And like, my friend was really like, "Come on, man, do we really got to do this?" And like, the guy's like, "Come on, run your stuff," and whatever. And I remember just, I mean, I was the standby effect in that moment, because it's like,
what do you do?
I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. And
my friend lost his hat that day. He lost his money that day. I don't remember what else he lost, but it happened right next to me.
Yeah. And I mean, he lost his security, man, his willingness to walk around without fearing people would do that to him, you know? And we live in New York City, you know, it's sad that that's how things are here. It doesn't justify shit.
In broad daylight.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been in that situation, and I've seen that situation many a times, and it's unfortunate, man. And no one's to blame in that, because I think the most important thing is to comply. And as childish as it may be, and whether or not you think you have the advantage or this or that motherfucker could have a gun any second, think illogically, end your life, face prison, but you'll be dead, you know, or have a knife, or just, you know, beat you up senselessly. And I think that it's very difficult to react in that situation. You know, I don't think anybody's to blame. I just think the fact that he got away healthy and fine is better, because things that are materialistic aren't worth your health, for sure. I hope anybody that hears this, that gets into an altercation later, hopefully not, that they realize, like, let them take your shit, because as long as you get home safe, that's the best thing in the world. So I'm sure that's what this guy was thinking during that moment. Just that if things had gone wrong, it could have ended for him any second.
Yeah.
So now I want to bring up what he did lastly. And on May 30th, 2020, his body was found dead on the Venice beach.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And they found it around 1:25 a.m., according to the LAPD. And they confirmed that it was Shad Gaspard. And, they, gave their condolences and all that stuff. But he was 39 years old when he was found. Now, what happened was that him and his son were out in the beach swimming. Okay. Having a good time. His son was 10 years old at the time. They were swimming at Venice Beach in Los Angeles. They were about 50 yards offshore, and apparently a wave had crashed over Shad Gaspard, and he was swept out to sea with his son. The real heroic part is that essentially the lifeguard went out to save both of them, and Gaspard pushed his son to the lifeguard and said, basically, go out, save my son, come back for me. Except when the lifeguard came back out to help Shad, he wasn't there anymore.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, it's really sad, and it just shows how much he loved his son, of course, but also how many people would do that in that situation. Again, I could never fault somebody for like asking the lifeguard to save both of them, and they all die. And look how big that guy was.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wanted to give some background on him, but ultimately when I was there at the Hall of Fame induction, his wife came out to take the award for him and his son, and I just couldn't imagine how it must have felt for his son to come out and just accept that award, because that was about 2 years ago. So he's about 12, 14, 13 now. Okay. And at first I felt a little like, damn, they probably should be bringing him out for that. But his wife gave a very good speech. And I actually, one of the main reasons that I wanted to bring this up is because what he said that Shad used to say, Shad Gaspard, to his son. He said, or in general, he said, there are two types of men in this world, the wolves and the sheepdogs. Always be a sheepdog. For the definition of a sheepdog is as follows. A sheepdog protects the flock of sheep from the wolves by combining elements from both the sheep and the wolves. They are empathetic towards others, yet they understand violence and aggression. Most importantly, they know how to use their aggression to protect others. She then called her son a sheepdog and said that you had a badass dad. And yeah, man, it's just I was fucking sad as shit when I was hearing all that. I was trying to have fun and all that stuff. But I wanted to bring him up just because I think that somebody...
You were like, God damn it, man. I'm on vacation.
Yeah. I'm sitting next to...
Shedding a tear while you're like...
I took my hat off, bro. I was like, yeah, I got to give my props to this guy somehow. Motherfucker texting Ice Brian in front of me. I mean, everybody was just silent. People were yelling out of encouragement. I'm like, yeah, like he was awesome. But I just couldn't believe what I was seeing and how they composed themselves so well, seeing videos of him on the screen and all that stuff. And man, it was tough, but I just thought that it was worth our time to talk about him because it's such a random person to talk about. WWE, it's only recent news because he was inducted to the Hall of Fame. But I also wanted to bring up a couple other things. So anybody that knows WWE knows the two names, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit.
I don't.
Exactly. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. Eddie Guerrero was a very famous Mexican wrestler in the WWE. Okay. He was a silly guy. Came out on a lowrider. His song was like lie, cheat, and steal, and all that stuff. And Chris Benoit was just some white guy, badass wrestler. Pick one. Pick a name.
Let's start with the white dude.
Chris Benoit. Woo! Anybody that's listening and knows. Basically, Chris Benoit is very famous not only for his wrestling, but over a 3-day period, he murdered his wife, his son, and I think 2 of his sons and his wife. Okay. And then he killed himself.
2 of his sons and his wife.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, that shit is crazy, bro. I'm gonna find it exactly here just so I can show you, but I'm pretty sure he strangled his wife.
God damn.
Yeah. And give me 1 second. He murdered his wife, his 7-year-old son, and then he killed himself over the weekend.
Okay.
And when this news came out
over this past weekend?
No, this is very, very before. This was in the article right now I'm reading is 2020, but this is a long time ago. I don't have the date right here, but it's fucking crazy.
Okay.
And when that happened, man, it shook the fucking world. Not even just wrestling world, just, headline, famous wrestler, kills his wife's son and then himself. to the point where you don't even hear this guy's name mentioned no more, especially in WWE.
Man.
And a lot of people describe him as somebody who wouldn't hurt a fly, very friendly guy who's always very happy and nice to people and all that shit. And he said, I mean, alcohol had a big part to do with it. Whenever they had problems, him and his wife, he would drink more. And at the crime scene, they found multiple wine bottles, half drunk or more. Again, his people have said he's the kindest human being you would ever find. And also people thought that steroids had a lot to do with it too.
Okay.
That roid rage was something that he dealt with and told his wife that he dealt with. And, you know, brain trauma is also a huge thing. CTE, which is chronic traumatic chronic traumatic encephalopathy. He had that in all 4 lobes of his brain and its stem.
Wow. So, and what did that cause?
CTE usually fucks up a lot of people's head. Anybody that's played football from high school to professional, getting hits to the head, whether it's lacrosse, football, wrestling, any contact sport, I mean, it just fucks up your psyche. It's true. And it's very interesting. And there's football players who have killed there's a football player who killed his mom.
Oh, wow.
And says that he doesn't remember anything.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And the NFL does a very great job at hiding all this. Even Will Smith, funny enough, has a movie about that.
Huh.
Yeah. And do you know about that movie?
Is it that King Richard movie?
Nope. That's about Serena Williams' father. It's called, I forget what it's called, but it basically the whole idea of it is to cover CTE in the NFL.
Huh.
A very under the radar movie, even though it's a huge movie.
Wow.
And so, and another thing that made us set off Chris Benoit is Eddie Guerrero's death. Eddie Guerrero was found in a hotel room. I think he had overdosed or died of something else. He died of a heart attack.
Okay.
And the examiner...
From the overdose?
No, it might not have been overdose. Actually, it was... the blood vessels were very worn and narrow. And it showed all the abuse from his work in his past due to drinking and drug abuse combined with an aggressive workout regimen.
Wow.
So, I mean, both these wrestlers dealt with, you know, trauma to their head, constant hits, all that stuff, that lifestyle, alcohol, drugs. But it also goes to show how these people are really put in conditions to perform, you know, and this is just all my past conversation with the people. But wrestlers used to get steroids like nothing. You know,
I didn't know that.
I mean, think about how big they are. You know, it's so nonsensical where these motherfuckers really are on steroids. And roid rage is very real. So, I mean, even the science of steroids have advanced up until now. But these stories are all crazy. And I don't mean to group them together. Like, the Shad Gaspard guy was clearly very different from the Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit guy. But the way both of these men were described was not as terrible men. Even the people that are closest to them described Chris Benoit, who, again, did something crazy, as a very, like, good person.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just interesting. And I only brought it up to you because I know people do know about the story. And I know you didn't. So I think it's incredibly interesting, to be honest with you.
No, I mean, it is interesting. Because I definitely was aware of the fact that like sports players like deal with head injuries and like, but I was just never aware of how much that could like really fuck anything up or anything like that.
It's crazy. That whole thing about CTE, I think, is very, very serious. And again, like I played high school football myself. That's why I kind of mentioned that stuff, just because I don't think that anybody has, like, I don't. A lot of football players don't ever want their kids to play football, like contact football. And I even kind of cringe when I see little kids hitting each other, like playing football, and I'm like, whoa, what the fuck, man? This is crazy. They should not be doing that, especially when they're so young. Going back to the whole brain developing at 25, like why are they doing this at like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Like it just seems outrageous to me. But it is very, very much involved in American culture, you know, football and all that stuff. So, and that whole ideology of be a man, you know, this and that, like you gotta be tough and all that stuff. So I think that's a topic I would love to definitely venture in much further. But I think that if you don't know at all who Eddie Guerrero or Chris Benoit is, aside the wrestling, which was fucking awesome, look up these stories because they're fucking informative as shit.
Man.
Yeah, man.
Well, shout out to Shad Gaspard.
Facts. And rest in peace.
Yeah, because like, you know, more than anything, he just sounds like, I think you mentioned it yourself before we started filming, or I think the video mentioned it. He's just kind of like an actual hero.
Yeah, man. Like a real life hero who just did what he was supposed to do in the video. And we'll definitely put the video up. Maybe not the whole thing, but just something about it. But yeah, fucking We took about 17 piss breaks during the show. I don't want to shy away from that fact. If you hear funny transition,
and I just want you guys to know
what's up?
That you guys won't even notice.
Oh yeah,
because the power of editing,
crazy,
and because I just get better at this shit every time I do them. So you're never gonna know.
Yeah, the only person who can get mad at us is our good old friend Jonathan. He's like, anybody who's a podcast shouldn't be pissing. Fuck that. Fuck that. Thanks for our sponsor, Stella.
No.
They fucking sue us and shit. No. If anything, I have a Stella tattoo.
He winked at the camera, folks. He winked at the camera.
No, man, no. It's my tick. I use so much TikTok now. Tick. Anyway, okay, my third topic, which is a more interesting topic, but a little more political.
Okay.
Outside of TikTok and the wrestler, rest in peace, Shad, Gaspard, is Title 42. And the reason I wanted to bring it up is because when I was in Texas, I saw the news there, and Texas news is way more different than here news. Is so heavy on immigration, and I wondered why. And right here, I'll put up some footage of the news I was watching in the hotel room, and how much these words are commonly used in the news for Texas and all conservatives. Biden administration, illegal immigrants, Biden administration, and illegal immigrants. They just spew those words so much. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a strategy going on where they just say everything and correlate Biden administration or Biden. And it's so interesting. And I look at it as how, liberals and CNN use the word Trump, mm-hmm. And it's a play on the news and everything. But I saw Title 42 as being uplifted in May 23rd. And in Texas, they were saying how bad this was. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck is Title 42? So Title 42 was a pandemic era policy put into place under the Trump administration. Basically, CDC held it up because it was supposed to prevent COVID from coming into the United States, aka prevent other people from coming to the United States from, let's say, Mexico or other countries like El Salvador and all that stuff.
Okay.
But it was mostly instilled in the Trump administration, which is essentially saying, hey, let's get these people from coming into our country, kind of like build the wall. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people coming into the country are seeking an asylum. Now, do you know what claiming asylum is, like to get asylum?
That isn't it just that you need to come here or you would die pretty much? In
a sense, and the actual definition, but it pretty much captures that, is that asylum is a form of protection which allows an individual to remain in the U.S. instead of being deported to a country where he or she fears persecution or harm. Under U.S. law, people who flee their countries because they fear persecution can apply for asylum. If they are granted asylum, that gives them protection and the right to stay in the U.S. Those who are granted asylum are called asylees, right? According to U.S. immigration law, a refugee is someone who has been resettled to the United States through the U.S. resettlement program. This is a separate process than asylum. So I wanted to get a little more into that because what sparked my interest into getting into this topic was a post that I shared on my own personal Instagram where Ukrainians are being allowed to enter the U.S. while a lot of Mexicans are being disallowed to enter the U.S. And not only Mexicans, but a lot of Hispanic people from South American countries and Central American countries. At this point, the Biden administration has allowed 100,000 Ukrainians to enter to the U.S. All right, and it gets more complicated than that because as of a week ago, there are dozens and dozens of Ukrainians in Tijuana, Mexico, waiting to get into the U.S. And it's a huge amount of people. As of a week ago, it was about 606, and that number is just climbing and climbing. 606 may seem minuscule to 100,000, but that number builds up.
That's still 600 people.
Yeah, just waiting out there and all that stuff. To apply for asylum in the U.S., you must be physically present in the U.S. or be seeking entry into the U.S. as a port of entry. Persecution can be the reason you would seek asylum can be harm or threats of harm to you, of your family, or to people similar to you. A person can also obtain asylum if he or she has suffered persecution in his or her country in the past. And the last thing I'll say in terms of reading the definition, which I think is very important, you can only win asylum if at least one of the reasons someone harmed or may harm you is because of your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or the fact that you are a part of a particular social group. So what Title 42 overall is, again, it's a CDC emergency declaration that allows the U.S. government to close its borders for public health reasons. Since March 2020, tens of thousands of families have sought asylum, have been expelled, with hundreds more coming each day to stay in 10 cities like Reynosa, Mexico. So basically, you can't see it right here in the screen that we're showing, but you see those tents right there?
Okay.
It's a bunch of people living in tents nearby the border waiting to get into the United States. Children under 6 can come through customs and border protection and enter the country, and they would have to come in by themselves, meaning their family can't come with them. Imagine being under 6 years old coming into the country to go through customs and, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
The families that are in Reynosa, Mexico are waiting for Title 42 to end so they can come into the country. Again, I'm not trying to debate whether who's more eligible to come into the country, Ukrainians or Mexicans. But for anybody thinking that, oh, well, Ukrainians going through a war right now, you know, of course they should have the privilege. Go to Mexico. Go to real. I'm not going to talk from my own experience, but just go live there and understand the politics of it and the reality of it. And I don't want to offend anybody that is Mexican. I'm Mexican myself or this or that. But and Honduras is fucking dangerous. You know, Mexico can be dangerous. There's a lot of countries that are dangerous as fuck. And we also see this preference or maybe this label to Europeans being seen as people who aren't accustomed to war, as in the Middle East, they are. You seen those reporters?
It's definitely an interesting topic. Like, just because I've read about how it's really difficult to get out of Ukraine right now at the moment, and how there's sort of a racial issue going on at the borders of Ukraine, where especially for Black people, it's it's harder for Black people to get out of Ukraine than it is for Ukrainians at the moment. So there's definitely a sort of almost privilege happening right now for Ukrainians.
And it's always it's commonly a colorist issue where, you know, if you are, you know, light skinned or white, you have more advantage than somebody who is dark skinned or Black. And I think also what's interesting is that there's the people that are waiting in Tijuana are not only Ukrainians, but there are Russians waiting there as well. So that, I think that was very interesting. But what I was kind of referring to is how a lot of news reporters in the Ukraine refer to places like the Middle East as places that are used to war, and how Ukraine is never used to war, even though the Soviet Union has been, you know, something that has been impacting the surrounding countries for a very long time, aka Ukraine.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's very strange how we kind of pick and choose who's what. You know, again, Trump will describe Mexicans as what? Rapists and, you know, murderers. And right now he's speaking how U.S. should not be standing by with the situation of Ukraine and Russia. So there is a preference issue there. And I want to speak about Governor Abbott in Texas.
Okay.
He uses that language towards people who are coming from different countries that I'm not going to speak myself because I think it's offensive in the UFO essence, in terms of, you know, people who are coming from different countries. I think it's childish and immature. But essentially, in terms of how long this was supposed to end, Title 42, July 31st, 2021 was when it was anticipated to end at first. Meaning that we've been waiting for this to end, but it kept getting pushed back. And justifiably, I'm not saying that this thing is even, you know, in terms of COVID, when people are leaving, trying not to die or get hurt, you know, you're closing off your borders and stuff like that. When borders are imaginary and man-made. And I may be biased and shit, but I'm not talking ignorant when it comes to that. Like, we're idiots for claiming that this land is ours when it isn't, when we took it from Native Americans.
This side of the table is my table.
Exactly. You know why? Because God. You know, some stupid shit like that. But this was supposed to end as early as July 31st, 2021. But this year it's ending May 23rd, 2022. Again, now, beforehand, Ukrainians were disallowed to enter these states because of Title 42, and now because of the Biden administration, they are being allowed to come in. The issue that COVID can be spread from one group more than the other is completely ignorant and not true, meaning that Ukrainians can spread COVID just as much as any other country, you know? And even when it comes down to that, I think it's in Africa when they found the Omicron variant. they banned travel to that country, but still continue travel to other European countries, which is ridiculous and dumb. You know, they're basically saying that we're gonna say that these people in Africa can't come to the U.S., but Europe and all these other countries are more than welcome to come, or whatever ones were allowed to. Now we get down to Texas, which is very crucial to understand because they're right by the border. So, of course, they have a lot to say about it. But the governor, Abbott, the man who's in the wheelchair, white hair, very big on abortion being prevented for women and stuff like that. I mean, he's a lot of talk and not a lot of... He talks more to the media to gain his advantage. Mind you, he's going to go up for election again in November.
Okay.
But he said this. Because of the mass migration they're anticipating in May 23rd, they're putting out a zero tolerance law. The Texas Department of Public Safety is ensuring that there will be an enhanced safety checks for automobiles entering Texas that are shipping products where people may be hiding in. Texas and Mexico have mass shipping between both of them all times. So they're going to start checking each and every one of those trucks or whatever very heavily, which will increase traffic. And he blames, again, the cartel in Mexico for this. Not himself. He blames Mexico for this. Again, he says,
I don't want to do this, guys.
but I guess I have to.
But someone is forcing my hand.
Yeah, man. All these Mexicans. And he calls the traffic a cause of cartels crossing the border from Mexico into Texas. Now, he also used this language and said that during this, there's two phases to what he wants to do with anticipating Title 42 ending. And he says that he would, in Texas, place state troopers in riot gear to meet migrants at the border and bust them straight to the steps of the U.S. Capitol. Okay. So if they catch anybody crossing from Mexico into the U.S., they're going to take them, put them in buses, and take them straight to Washington, D.C. so Biden can deal with it. Right? This is where I'm talking about, where he's using his words much more colorfully than he actually means them to. What's actually happening is that those buses are completely voluntary for migrants, meaning that they're not going to be forced on those buses at all. And some are even questioning why they would even allow people to go to Washington, D.C. if that was where they wanted to go in the first place. You know, like you're just giving them a
why
free
Washington,
ride.
D.C.?
Yeah. And it's for a reason, but like, you know, so Biden himself can deal with it and they can handle the problem, but you're kind of helping what you're trying to prevent, aka people getting into our country. You know, you're kind of helping them. Also, they would only be allowed on the bus if they are processed and released by the Department of Homeland Security. So you see what he's saying on these, you know, vocally and all this shit is pretty much a lie. He released all this information after his speech. But during his speech, he says, we're going to take them straight to the steps of D.C. And he's not saying it in some, like, you know, quote unquote redneck, you know, type of, no, he's saying it like as a politician, but he's saying it in a way where I can imagine, especially the guy in front of me who was texting his friend Ice Brian, like, took our jabs, you know, all that stuff, you know, all the stupid shit. So in addition to buses, he also ordered the state to charter flights to transport migrants to the nation's capital. The migrants would have to show documentation that they had already been processed by Department of Homeland Security. And actually, a lot of immigration advocates say that they think that asylum seekers, in order to reach their final destination, is something the state itself should invest in. So if that's what you want, the state should be involved into getting you to there if you're processed in a way where it's justified and, you know, in the American law system and everything.
So it should be handled at a state level, not a federal level.
Yeah, and a lot of advocates for immigration, you know, say that, but that's just one group's opinion. What else is involved in this phase is blockades over the water with boats, and razor wires will be put in low water crossing areas, meaning that people who are trying to cross over will be prevented from coming in through boats and razor wire.
Oh, wow.
Right now, the National Guard is rehearsing mass migration models, anticipating many people to enter Texas. So they're rehearsing how to handle the situation. And troopers and specially trained National Guards will be provided with riot gear. So think about all these people coming in, right? You think they have riot gear? And what he says is, well, the cartels in the past have shown that they're willing to go to the distance in Mexico to this and that and this. I don't think that these people are going to be dealing with that. I just don't think so. I may be wrong. I may not be as educated as it is. I don't want to speak more so, but it'd be very interesting to see if a bunch of Ukrainians get, run into these riot people, and the war they're running away from is essentially the war they're running towards. Because what are they coming into this country? What Gregory Abbott calls them, which I won't say, but it's a disgusting term, and. For those who don't know what I'm saying, if you just can't imagine, you can't imagine. But imagine not being called a human, coming into this country. Again, 4 million people have left the Ukraine to come to either America or elsewhere. Well, 4 million people have left the Ukraine. And Ukrainians right now, like I said earlier, are waiting in Mexico to seek asylum.
So they're going to Mexico?
Yeah, like right now there's a bunch of people, because to travel from Ukraine to Mexico, you don't need a visa.
Okay.
So that's easier part to get into there, and then entering Mexico to the U.S. is famously known for being doable. Mm-hmm. People can come from here and everything. I don't care how much walls you build, somebody will get it. Then again, 100,000 Ukrainians are able to enter. As before, Title 42 has blocked 2 million migrants from entering through the border.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's a shitload of people. And now a lot of people have a lot of feedback in terms of what Gregory Abbott had to say.
And that's who got caught, too.
Yeah, exactly. Think about the people. I mean, it's crazy. And Democrat Mary Gonzalez of El Paso says that instead of using our tax dollars to drive economic growth and build infrastructure, Governor Abbott is funding political stunts at the expense of Texas families and their troops. I'm going to read this just because I think it's very crucial to understand how idiotic this movement is, even though I do think there is some place of understanding the situation in terms of a conservative versus a Texan or anybody, even though the way they're expressing is very silly, childish, and Trumpism. Which is very much a turn, especially when you look at the governor DeSantis of Florida, who's saying that right now we have the most fentanyl deaths because of Mexico, essentially. And I don't know about you, but if you ever heard of the crack epidemic, that impacted Black people heavily, things like pills in this country have affected white people as the same rate. And when it happened to Black people, it was like, oh yeah, they're responsible and they're drug dealers and this and that. But when it's white people, it's a health crisis and they need medical attention and they need help to save themselves. And how selfish it is to deem white people as what is it?
Troubled.
Not only troubled, but the victims, while Black people are deemed the criminals causing this.
It always comes down to race.
Yeah, of course, and that's why. And then really at the core of it is just political superiority. So I want to read this. I'm gonna put it up. Maybe we should sub it in the extra audio because I want to shout out this article for being very unbiased. But it says earlier this week, Texas military department officials told state lawmakers that they were running out of money to pay for the mission, which now has a price tag of $2 billion a year, even though the state allocated only $412 million to the agency. In January, state lawmakers transferred $480 million to the department, but TMB officials said Tuesday they would need $531 million in additional funds to keep the mission operating beyond May, which is when Title 42 is supposed to end.
Okay.
So now we're hearing price as $2 billion, $412 million, $531 million, all for it's
a lot of money.
It's a lot of fucking money. Abbott says that on Wednesday, he says he won't require any additional funds, but he noted high costs to the state of his border mission. And this is the last thing I'll read off because I'm only reading it off word for word because it's very complex too. So if you have to rewind to some shit, that's you, because even I would have to. Governor Abbott of Texas has deployed nearly 10,000 troops on this mission, many of whom have been sent involuntarily.
Okay.
His office has repeatedly boasted that the mission has disrupted drug and human smuggling networks, but those claims of success have been based on shifting metrics that have included crimes with no connection to the border and were conducted before the operation. So
there's still no real evidence.
There's no real evidence. It's all political talk. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't people who are coming from Mexico and realistically any other country. Who's to say Ukrainians are going to do the same exact thing over here? I'm not saying that they're the ones to blame. At first, when I wanted to do this story, I was kind of conflicted, saying, and even felt like, damn, it's unfair for Ukrainians to be able to come in and not other people who are waiting there constantly because they are escaping similar situations. But then realistically, it's like, no, man. In general, the whole situation is fucked because the way we look at it is very black and white. You know, I don't want to be hurt in my country, so why are they taking my job? All stuff that is so barbaric to think of, you know? You'll get your fucking shit cooked for or washed, or even people that higher up who are immigrants, like, you'll never know, you know, but once you find out, you feel a certain type of way, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like the whole idea, I feel like we forget that it's just, we're all human at the end of the day. It's like there's no difference between like a Ukrainian and a Mexican. Yeah. It's like there's no
difference to anybody as long as there's blood within you.
It's like either one of them could be a drug dealer. Yeah, man. Either one of them could be a gangbanger. Yeah. Either one of them could be this or that. But to just categorize one group as that is just wrong.
Yeah. And Florida was one of the biggest distributor of opioids to people in general. In general, people would be able to go to one place, get opioids strapped to their necks, get more and more. It's crazy. There's such hypocrites over there. And you think about that, and then this, you know, Don't Say Gay bill, which is very, very much also stretched out in terms of what it definitely does. But I just think that these headlines are being just overlooked, and the people who are paying attention to them are the righteous ones, those who are going to fight heavily, and then those who are going to, you know, for or against it. And then everybody in the middle is kind of like, oh, Will Smith slapped, you know, Chris Rock at the Oscars, so it doesn't really matter to me, you know. And it's very interesting, and I just really wanted to bring that up because, you know, that is an issue that is very, you know, close to me. And everyone, it should be close to everyone. It just seems at a point now that if you are somebody who is for Trump, that you have to be against anybody coming over the border, even if it's for reasons that you would accept any refugee from any country for, especially Ukraine. So interesting. And that's why I try to attack unbiased, even though I kind of may have come off as, you know, a little biased or this or that. But you know what I mean?
I mean, you know, you do what you can.
Yeah, man. I'm just trying to read off these articles. And I thought that was very interesting.
What he said. You see, I'm not saying it because this article said it.
I'm saying it because saying it is saying it. You know what I mean?
This is just something that I read.
It really is. Literally, this whole show is what we've just read. Straight up. And yeah, man. So, I mean, this is something that, again, I've only came across. Most of my topics are pretty much because when I went to Texas, I got that little exposure to. But it was so interesting to see how the news is just that. It's pretty much all that stuff. And how many times they say the word Biden. And I was going to bring up all types of articles in regards to this. But there were just some articles that were not even talking about any facts. All they said was, a Biden administration has never been so unpopular to this day and this and that. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how all their point is to deter or like impose a political movement rather than just say the actual news.
No, I mean, I think it's so interesting that like they say like Biden a lot
so much
on the news like that.
It reminds me of the whole like thanks Obama thing, you know. It's just like it's a joke and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's still very. It's interesting, but again, we're the people that also said Trump, like Trump. When it was at the end of the day, it's all politics and politicians. It's a whole organization.
I mean, it's like how you're mentioning it at the beginning of the conversation. I'm so glad the visual got that. That's so funny.
For those that are just listening, we have a little like we hear that it's a mat, so you don't hear our glasses touching the ground. And my shit is stuck to the mat, and it's just funny as fuck. Check out the YouTube video.
He just lifted the whole fucking thing up. It was like a cartoon.
It'd be funny if the whole table came up. Like, oh, shit.
Oh, man. I just lost my train of thought. Fuck, man. That fucked me up.
Mexicans.
Taking my train of thought.
It'd be like that, bro. Yeah, man.
But no, I mean, hey, man, all I got to say is that, I remember now.
What's up?
What I gotta say.
What you gotta say?
Bringing topics like Biden and then immigration laws makes it synonymous.
Yeah.
Where it's like you hear Biden, you're like, those immigration laws.
You gotta think that, and for sure. I think that's why off the bat I mentioned that strategic, just because it's on purpose, and I completely understand.
And it's bare line propaganda.
Oh, for sure. for sure. And I don't think people realize how much they're falling into that nowadays. Especially, you know what fucked us, man? Team Jacob or Team Edward on Twilight. That really fucked us up, man, because
yo, you know what fucked me up?
What's up?
You know what fucked me up?
What fucked you up?
So shout out to this YouTube channel that I love. Everyone should check these guys out.
Check them out.
Mr. Sunday Movies.
Mr. Sunday Movies. You put me on before.
And so they have this series called Caravan of Garbage, where they basically just look at whatever. They look at movies, TV shows, comic books, and they just go through that.
Yeah.
And they were prepping for the new Batman movie.
Okay.
They were like, I saw the new video. It was Batman Begins. And I was like, nice. They're going through the Christopher Nolan trilogy.
I just seen the Batman Begins where he has a log on him and he's like, what the fuck you do all those push-ups for? And Christian Bale's like, I'm dying. Really great movie.
Well, I was so hype. I was like, oh, they're going to go through the Nolan trilogy. This is going to be dope. Oh. I click on that fucking video and they're like, yeah, you know, in preparation of Batman and all of this, we decided to look at Robert Pattinson's Twilight. No. They went through the fucking Twilight series.
Saga series, whatever.
The whole 4 movies.
The best movies ever made.
And you know, they're pretty entertaining in terms of just like how trashy they are.
Yeah, I didn't hate the first one. I was gonna say that the first was I never expected Robert Pattinson to be Batman. There's something that they pointed out in their video for the first Twilight movie is that there's a behind the scenes commentary with Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson, and I don't know if you remember, but like in those movies, especially in like the first one, like Edward will just show up out of nowhere. Shit.
And so there's like a scene where Edward just shows up in Bella's truck. And in the commentary, when that happens, Robert Pattinson goes, "I'm Batman."
He knew all along.
So it's just a funny little thing where it's like, wow, and he's Batman.
I don't know. I couldn't believe it. It's still better than Ben Affleck though. Oh, fuck you, Ben Affleck. I've never seen Ben Affleck be Batman, so I can't really say. But you have though.
Yeah.
1 out of 10.
I give him a 6.
You give him a 7. I'll give him a 7. Just because J-Lo.
Oh no. All right. But he's rubbing her butt and stuff. They're so happy together.
Oh. Ben Affleck. Oh. So. Let's move on to the AMC section, just because you know, and I wanted to have enough time to talk about this, and I will, because I don't want to cut this off at all. Today for the AMC section, we'll be talking about American Splendor.
American Splendor.
Splendor spelled Splendor. Not only did we read the anthology written by Harvey Pekar and many artists to draw his comics, we watched a movie called American Splendor with Jim Giuliani. He was in
Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti, right? He's very famous, and I only remember him from that Disney movie
Big Fat Liar.
Big Fat Liar also, and the other movie where his face was completely blue. I think it was called Get a Clue. It's an old movie. But I really was curious to see how you reacted to this comic and movie, only because I just felt that it was so out of place with everything we've been doing so far, with like Batman and Mouse and this conspiracy one and all that stuff. And I feel like this was such a weird way to go. And just a brief summary, American Splendor, again, is written by Harvey Pekar, and essentially it just tells the story of himself.
Yeah.
His everyday life, events or scenarios. And it's so simple, but it's so unique in terms of what they call a comic book.
Yeah, and to reiterate, it's an anthology series.
Yes.
And
describe to people what an anthology series is.
Just like,
I didn't know.
Just like how I mentioned of High Maintenance earlier, it's an anthology series, meaning that with just like of how High Maintenance, every episode is about a different person. With American Splendor, every issue is a collection of short stories.
Yes.
And so it's just short stories, little moments through Harvey Pekar's life where he's just being himself.
Yeah, man.
And he's a very interesting character.
Oh, man. And the way to describe him physically is this kind of grumpy looking old man with like a bald headedness. Not when he was younger, but more so now, older. Not the most fit, kind of simple looking average Joe. He talks like this. I can't do a impression at all. His voice was very scratchy.
He talks like this.
He talks like this.
Harvey Peacock.
Yeah, what you got? You know, no justice to him. He is passed by now. Rest in peace to Harvey Peacock for real.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he actually is passed away. We'll get onto it later. He got cancer later in his life, which was that you do know.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm not mistaken, he died because of he took it too much pills. I forget which ones.
Oh, wow.
And it was like something bad for his heart. He just,
Shit.
so. But we were able to watch the movie, which was very well done. But more so, let's emphasize the comics because this is the comic book section, and we kind of involve the movie.
And real quick,
yeah.
this is with last episode. You guys are getting a double comic episode.
Oh yeah, shit! Nice
comic episodes back to back.
Hell yeah, man! And we're gonna put it up really big here, but right here when you just see this book, this shit is thick as fuck.
It's a thick boy.
Boy, this motherfucker is huge, and so I had a really great time. Reading this, and it kind of brought me back. I will say when I first came across Harvey Peacock and his stories, it was just a movie, and I have no idea why I watched it. This is before I met you. This is before the podcast. I just watched it and I really enjoyed it. And I know we're expanding a lot on just coming across this, but it was just very special because the movie itself is so unique. In terms of how it was shot. Unique. It was narrated by Harvey Peacock himself. And they even stopped the movie in the middle to show the set and Harvey Peacock talking to the thing. And the first thing he says, kind of going to the comics, is if you're looking for a fairy tale and a feel good story, this is the wrong place. And now we can get into the comics. A multiple amount of illustrations. Some of them I'll read off right now. We have art by Chester Brown, Kevin Brown, Greg Budget, Art Crum, Gary Dunn, William Fogg, Drew Friedman, Rebecca Huntington, Paul Medvrides, Val Marabic. That's the name of a couple. But all the stories are written by Harvey Peacock. And because there's so many stories, I just felt like we couldn't cover them all, like you mentioned earlier too. So I have a couple of them. But before we start into the stories, he writes a lot of Jewish accents the same way in Maus.
Yeah.
Like instead of saying
Yiddish talk,
instead of saying like "what's it's to ya," he'll write "what's to ya," with the T apostrophe and it captures a time period too. I think so. I think when you read these comics, he was born in 1939 around there.
Okay,
and I mean his stories were through the 50s and 60s and 70s. I don't know exactly what but very interesting. To capture that time period, even though they may be very controversial. I think still. There's a times to capture, There
were a couple stories where I was where they seemed a little racy.
Oh, for sure. Especially when it comes to black people talking.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be like regular talking. It would be like, oh well, me, I don't really want to say it because it does come off offensive. I think so, but I also think that I don't think who he was somebody that was racist or this or that, especially how you saw the people he surrounded himself by and who he confided in, this or that. I hate to say this, like it was the times, but I don't think it was that. I think it just was how he saw the world, and melded into, similar media consumption at that time. But I do agree, not only for black people, but for Jews and everything else. But I mean, the reason I know he's very smart, he described himself as a something liberal. I don't know exactly what. But he says that I'm a particular type of liberal and that he couldn't talk to certain people because of how non-progressive they are. Especially when it comes to David Leonard, and I don't want to skip over too much, but how he didn't like to be on that show a lot because he looked at David Letterman as a puppet for a company that did so much more worse outside of their walls, The reason I say time period is because in the beginning of the early comics in the anthology, he says things like he's listening to baseball games on the radio. And how he was beaten as a kid from his father, supposedly through the comic, and then he woke up. He's like, "What happened?" But it was because he kept throwing baseballs and breaking windows.
Yeah,
And in the we'll put some pictures up for sure. But there's a certain comic called Hysteria, which is early in the book, and he's talking to an editor that's gonna put a review out for American Splendor. And he says, they'll call me a misogynist because I show myself arguing with women. And actually, I'm pro-feminist.
I remember that.
Remember that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And there's a tweet that I saw reposted that I really was very fond of. And what the tweet says is, this is a 2022 tweet. It says, and this is just a quote, not my words. The woke mob claims to be anti-cop, but they are the new police state. They want to control how you speak, and if you go against it, they will arrest, parentheses, cancel you, remove you from all social outlets, and may even make it hard to you get a job. And then it says, I'm like, babe, you are the cop. And I think that's a very, very well said take on cancel culture, where how people today think that, first of all, they're very anti-cop. Most people today that are very, very liberal and all that stuff, yet they are policing people's actions and words. Not to say that people who do terrible things shouldn't be ousted, but again, what is your term of living as a human being in this country when you kind of stop people from being a human being? And do you trust the justice system? If you don't, what do you trust? And if we have no justice system, isn't everything just wild?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting just because in terms of like Harvey Picar, I feel like, because immediately I was just so amazed by the idea that this guy is literally making comics about himself.
Yeah, man.
Like these people are drawing him and he looks like different people in every story, whatever the case is. And the way that I saw that was just that, like, he is turning himself into a character.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of losing my train of thought because there's just so much going on.
So much.
There's so much going on with this book. But repeat your last note that you made.
Basically, how saying that he's a feminist, but when he argues with women, that if people were to see that, they would see him as somebody who's misogynistic. But in reality, he's really a pro-feminist. So
my thought was that he was so afraid of this review coming out that he didn't want to come off as misogynistic, but he portrays himself in his comics. So the way that he's portrayed out to the world publicly is only ever done by himself. Like even on Letterman and whatever the case is later on, that's him 100%.
He's authentic as fuck. And it's interesting because I don't think a lot of people have that courage to be that today.
He is. I mean, the fact that he narrates the movie, is just like, this, like,
even in the movie, they're like, "Hey, did you read the script?" He's like, "I read a little bit of it." and even though he has such a raspy voice, I'm talking real raspy. Like I was like, I can't even replicate. That's how raspy it is. This is how old school he is. Not only does he say "man" all the time, like, come on, man. He introduces himself in the story as our hero comes into this part, our man comes into this story today and he's the director, and I say, "Hey, you want any water, Harvey?" He's like, "Nah, I got plenty of orange right here." And it's just like so classic, so old school,
He's so confident in himself, and
really is.
I feel like it's just so much. I think of like, is he just super egotistical? Or is he like genuinely one of the most just genuine people out there? And I feel like it's such a blurry line because he talks. This whole thing is about himself. Everything.
There's not one thing that isn't, and if it isn't, it's characters that he's created. And I think that's why this hits home a lot. Because these stories were very personal to me, more so the movie. I'll say this straight up. Like I saw the movie today, and when it ended, like I cried. Like I cried something like, oh man, like it really hit home because we'll get into more detail later on. But it was one of those cries where I just had to let it out because it's been in me for so long, Yeah,
I'll give you a hug, man.
Oh man, air hug right there, bro. Thank you. Because I mean, it sucks that this guy died. Like I read the Batman things and the Sandman things, and Neil Gaiman is cool as fuck and all that stuff. I even thought I seen him on the train just because I saw a bunch of old white dudes. But I would kill to have him sign my American Splendor, not to sell, just to like meet him. Because to skip over to a little over comics, he was in a comic book shop where somebody who was a young comic book kind of like entrepreneur wanted to buy a bunch of Harvey's copies. And actually tomorrow, like, you're going to get your shit sold, your comics sold and your stickers and all that stuff, and Earth Minus Matter stickers.
Nice.
He made a deal with a young comic book entrepreneur, and he said, "Hey man, I'll to Harvey, I'll buy a bunch of your copies, come do a signing at this comic book shop, all that stuff."
Yeah, that's actually one of the stories that I bookmarked for myself.
I might have it
that
here.
was Jack Dickens' Comic Kingdom.
Yes. Let's get into that. Jack Dickens' Comic Kingdom. And I mean, essentially, again, like it's somebody who's buying Harvey P. Carr's books and wanting him to do a signing, right?
Yeah, and he's like, oh man, we're really robbing this guy, or whatever the case.
And he even tells him too. He's like, I'm sorry we couldn't do much more for you.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy's like, last night I got into a DWI and I had a bunch of weed. I had some weed in my car and this and that. But he was a big host and a big fan. And
he was just really nice. And the fact that he had the DWI and like all that shit, he still went to go pick them up and take them to the shop and all this stuff. Like,
and my favorite thing was when he, I have it right here actually, when he's talking to right here, the guy who invites Harvey to the signing. He says, folks, we got Harvey P. Carr here today. Harvey's one of the best comic book writers around. If you want to take advantage of this rare opportunity to meet him, and only about 2 or 3 people came to meet Harvey. But one of the people that came was some guy. He said, hey, man, I just came back from Saudi Arabia, man. Reading these books kept me alive when I was out there. And Harvey says, hey, if you have some time to chat, let's chat, because I would love to hear your politics on the situation. And I really enjoyed that part because, let's see. He says, and the book signing was in 1986, you know? And he says this. He says, what are the politics of Saudi Arabia? And then he says, how stable is that Shiite regime in Iran? Does the Ayatollah have a genuinely acknowledged successor? And they have a whole discussion just for so much time that the guy who came back from, Saudi Arabia, he says, hey, man, where did the time go? I got to go, but here's my card. And the reason I repeated exactly what he asked him is because he was very up to date with what was going on in the world.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't ignorant to all that stuff. And some people may hear that sentence like, what's that Shiite regime and all that stuff? But I bet you don't even know what the fuck he's talking about in 1986 in terms of U.S. politics. If you do, you do. Props to you. I don't. And the fact that not only was he willing to ask the fan who came up to him, but the guy who set him up for the book signing, he asked him, what are the politics in San Diego? And he says this or that, you know. He says there's new money and there's old money.
Yeah.
You know, and it's cool, man. Harvey P. Carr was an interesting motherfucker, you know.
And he definitely met interesting people.
Oh, yeah. And it's a blessing to, today, like we mentioned earlier when we were working, we had an old customer come up to you. And I overheard it, feeling like Harvey P. Carr in the situation. And I told Harvey, man, that was some of the oldest shit I ever heard in my life. And you were like, what? And the customer said, he said, hey, you know what was it?
He came up and he was like, oh, you know what's weird? I Facebook has collected all of my images of my food. And like, look at this. It says good eats.
Yeah.
And of all these pictures of food that I cooked.
Yeah. And for me, I was like, that's the oldest sentence ever, you know? So definitely a wise guy who also asked a lot of questions. He didn't, like, you know, he was confident in himself and didn't shy away from asking anybody what. And yeah, I mean, aside from the comics I have in here, like you say, also, you know, what's very famous about Harvey P. Carr is that he was on David Letterman a shitload of times.
Yeah.
And I think not only the comics that he wrote himself capture it best, but the only reason I say that because in the movie, when they portray those scenes, they shift from the actor to his footage of him actually on David Letterman show. But you can notice that in the comics to the footage, it's literally word for word dialogue. And I think that's the most crazy part. That some people write stories about themselves or like, you know, even Narcos about Pablo Escobar, they have to make it more dramatic and add things to the story.
Yeah.
But this guy literally took exactly what happened and put it into his comic books. I thought that was amazing. And how would you describe his interaction with David Letterman?
I mean, at first I was like, did this actually happen?
Yeah.
And then it was kind of hitting me as I read it, where I was like, no, of course this happened because like this book is about his life pretty much. And I was just like, wow, I can't believe this happened.
Yeah, man.
Like this guy's crazy.
Yeah.
And I definitely the first David Letterman story I bookmarked for sure. Cause I was just like, this is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And Yeah, he's very whatever about it at first. He's just kind of like, I just in it for the money, whatever.
He says, no sense of trying to talk about anything substantive. All the guy wants us to banter and get laughs. Lightweight shit. He says, people talk about what a great outdown artist he is. Shit, he's just in there with the dummies. That's why he looks good. I must have rapped with dozens of faster guys in Delicatessen. He says, I got to get in his face, take his game away from him, smother him from the start. Harvey Picar worked as a file clerk in a Cleveland hospital. And we'll put up the David Letterman supplementary for sure, because it's so interesting. But continue what you were going to say.
Yeah, and he goes in and he is just not letting Letterman speak.
Not at all.
He's just like speaking over him and just kind of like getting really defensive off the bat, like not taking any of his shit, and he's just kind of trying to run the show almost.
And he does, and he even gains the attention of the crowd. He even gains laughter, and he's like, "Isn't that what you wanted, for me to get the laughs?" And the first thing he said, he's like, "I'm waiting for you to hit me with those Cleveland jokes," because he's from Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, man, can you imagine the balls in that guy just fucking to go in there on somebody else's show, especially David Letterman
on live television.
Just be yourself. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people lack today's day and age, because it's a weird time to be yourself today.
And that's like, again, where it gets really blurry for me of like, is he just super genuine or is he just like an egomaniac?
I love in the movie how his wife Joyce, if I'm not mistaken, his wife Joyce, basically she's a great character and it seems like a great wife, but they're both kind of different. Was it like the same branches of the same tree? They're both kind of crazy on their own sense, but she says that she can spot mental illnesses or deformities or whatever from other people. And she had a couple of Harvey's friends, Toby especially, who talks like nerd. He portrayed his friend Toby as somebody who loved White Castle and drove 260 miles, word to word, 260 miles, not only in the book, but in the movie, to go watch Revenge of the Nerds. Yeah. And he's like, why aren't you watching it here? He's like, they're not showing it here, Harvey. They're not showing it. That's how he talked. They're not showing it here. So basically she labels him as borderline autistic. She labels Harvey Picar as Grenor something. I forget what it's called.
I think also like obsessive compulsive, because then there's also an obsessive compulsive story.
But she points at David Letterman on TV. She taps on the screen. She goes, megalomaniac to David Letterman. And it was so funny. And I think it's very interesting that he found somebody like her, because the way he did was that she didn't get her copy of American Splendor, and she basically wrote to Harvey Picar and was like, hey, I didn't get it and I don't want to get it from the distributor. Can I please get a copy from you directly? And Harvey Picar was like, just come to Cleveland and I'll get you a copy. Maybe we could hang out. This is all the movie, but the movie is narrated and basically pretty much told by Harvey Picar.
Yeah.
And essentially they meet up, have dinner, and they kiss, and right after they kiss, what happens?
She throws up.
And it just seems like such an American Splendor story, like almost like, if God or not, like if God was writing the story, biggest sense of humor ever, and it's so funny.
Yeah, and then as she's throwing up, he's like, "Oh, I got you a bunch of teas and stuff because I knew you were coming. I know you like teas and whatever." She's just like, we should just skip all the bullshit courtship and get married.
Yeah. And I think that was very interesting because I think she knew from the start, and I think that's also why I like Harvey Picar, because his romantic side was very much there. He very much was a romantic person, even though it may not have come off because of how aggressive and loud he spoke and all that stuff.
Is he a romantic or is he just lonely?
I mean, sometimes that's a mixture of both things. I think sometimes the people who are most romantic are the most loneliest, And I don't mean to sound poetic or be like, yeah, man, I'm correct. But his other wife left him. Why? Because he lost his voice and couldn't speak no more,
I don't think that was the main reason she left. I think I don't think they explained it. She just kind of gets fed up with his shit.
I think that's what I think that's what he said. She
refers to him as like this
depressing and so
plebeian lifestyle.
There we go. And he's like a plebeian lifestyle. And but what he said to somebody else is that he was like, I lost my voice, man. I can't talk. What
he was saying that to the doctor.
To the doctor, right? He's like, my wife's gonna leave me now because my voice been gone for months. But it probably is much more piled up things than just the voice thing.
Yeah.
And what we're referring to is that he lost his voice because he has a nodule on his vocal cords. I'm not sure exactly what a nodule is, but it probably comes from screaming so much, which is what Harvey Picard did a lot. He screamed like a motherfucker.
Yeah, and there's actually a story about it in the anthology. Just like with the movie, how you get to see it in the movie, in the anthology, you kind of see that moment happen where he's at the doctor's and stuff, and the speech bubbles.
Yes.
The lettering gets kind of like faded away or dotted away
to represent how raspy and away his voice is. I actually had that written down as well because I thought that was very, very dope and creative and so particular to him, to him losing his voice and his portraying it to, the comic books. I think that's so cool, man. And kind of like a blessing and a curse. I think most of his stories were blessing and curses. And in the movie, Joyce, his wife, describes as Picard, Harvey, as taking a more negative outlook on the life because people find it more interesting rather than the positive. And I thought that was very interesting. And maybe that could go down to how, what'd you say, is either confident or what, full of himself?
I think that he's either super genuine or egotistical.
And I think he might have definitely been a bit of egotistic, only because, like if you're only describing the depressing parts of your life. Actually, this is very interesting. The comedian I'm going to see right after our show is called Doug Stanhope. And the reason I bring him up right now is because he talks on a podcast and he says, and it's kind of like he says this, it's kind of like when my dad died, right? He says, is it wrong to say that once my father died, I'm trying to mimic him a little, that not only I wasn't really sad about his death, but I only was kind of anticipating the attention it would draw to me. That's what he says. And he's like, am I wrong for that? That kind of talks like that.
Interesting.
And it's very interesting because in a way, Harvey Picard kind of represents his stories like that, and how he is so frustrated and angry all the time. Maybe he saw leverage to that or an opportunity there to use this anger within him to portray stories that may capture interests of other people.
And he kind of says it in the movie where he wakes up in the middle of the night and he's kind of like freaking out or whatever. And he says like,
a job, right?
Like, well, he's like, am I just a character? When I die, like,
will the character
keep on going, or will the character die? And I think that's just a really interesting thing because I don't know. You look at someone like Stan Lee and like in the MCU, and now he died, and now he's no longer in the movies.
Yeah, man.
And so it's like, the character died as Stan Lee. So it's a really interesting concept.
Oh yeah. I want to read this with you. I just don't know if we could find the copy real quick. So I kind of want to see if we could read it together, or I'll just read it right now. Let's see. Give me like 2 seconds. 3, 2. Oh, right here. I think I found it. This is a very funny. I can't find it, so we'll read it right here. I'm gonna read it right here just because it's easier. So this is a short comic, a 1-page comic, where Harvey is talking to a friend of his on the phone. And he's talking to his friend Dale. Harvey says, Dale.
I have the page here.
Page? Perfect, beautiful. The Harvey and Dale story. It's called New York City with the Heart. All right, beautiful. Let's read it from the top if you don't mind.
Okay.
Right, so let's do that. So I'm gonna read the heading of it. It says New York, March 24th, 1987. I've just finished taping a TV program which will be shown in a few hours. A buddy drops by to watch it in my hotel room, and I reimburse him for a box of used books he got from me. You be there, I'll be Harvey.
All right. Many thanks. This money will really come in handy.
Don't mention it, Dale. There's some things I can really use in there, and $66.44 for 36 books. Any books, let alone rare ones, is a hell of a bargain. Afternoon the next day. Dale?
Yeah, Harvey. Look, when you get back to Cleveland tomorrow, will you stop payment on that check and mail me another one minus the amount it costs to stop it? I've been looking all over for it, but it's not in my bag or pockets or anything. I must have dropped it when I was riding my bike home.
Wow, that's too bad.
Yeah, probably some scumbag Puerto Rican junkies trying to cash it now.
Then there's a note where Harvey Picard is staying in a hotel. It says, Harvey Picard, room 834. While you were out, Dale says, I found the check. Don't stop it. Please call tomorrow to confirm. Harvey says, I got your message about the check. Where was it?
Some Hispanic guy found it in the street in my deposit envelope. It had my address on it, so he brought it over. He got past the front door some way without ringing my bell, then came up and knocked on my door. I didn't even want to open it, but he kept knocking. He kept on knocking, and finally I did, and there he was with the check.
Hispanic guy. Now, ain't you sorry about what you said about Puerto Ricans?
Yeah, and what really makes me feel bad is that my first thought when he got the check back was he couldn't cash it, so he brought it back to me.
And I think that's just funny, man. I just think that like how, and it's just a funny little story. You know, we'll put the actual comic book up that we can definitely just post so people can read it. But it just shows how. That's why I don't think he was who he was, because he wrote that stuff, and it's just like, how dare you? Not how dare you, but I bet you feel terrible about what you were thinking that a Puerto Rican guy, even though a Hispanic guy came to your door and delivered the check you thought you lost. And it's just little stories like that that just kind of sum up how his brain worked, how he was thinking, and how he portrayed his stories. It was pretty dope.
There was one story that I feel like you would remember as well if I could pull it up. It's another one-page story. It's later on. It's the weed story.
Oh yeah, where thank God it wasn't what was it, a Dogon or something like that?
Because I had to search up what they were referring to.
Me too. It was like a place where they kept limbs or some shit like that. I'm forgetting about that.
We should genuinely search it up. I found it.
Nice.
The greenhouse effect.
The greenhouse effect.
It basically, it's just a one-page story where Harvey's friends are just they have a little box where they're growing weed inside their apartment, and Harvey goes, "That's all right, man. Actually, I'm relieved. I thought it was gonna be an Oregon box." And I was like, "A what?
Like, what is the Oregon box?" Mind you, the guy who has the weed plan is making like $600 to $1,000 a day or something like that. A week?
Every 2 months.
Every 2 months he's making, which is a lot of money back then. Because he used to bargain. Harvey Pico would bargain for fruits. He would be like 50 cents or some shit like that. He'd be like, all right, I'll give it to you for 33 cents. He'd be like, all right.
I want you to search up what an Oregon box is, because even the picture of what it is, because we'll put it up in the supplementary. Definitely. But I searched it up and I was like, this is so weird. What the fuck?
Oregon box. And what it says is an Oregon box is where you claimed and captured, preserve Oregon energy in the atmosphere. Hold on. It's a pseudo-scientific concept variously described as an esoteric energy or hypothetical universe life force. What the fuck?
It's a box where you just sit in it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Oh, wait, I think I might.
So if you look at the pictures, it's just a box with like a chair in it.
I didn't know
and
that.
That's it.
And like, what the fuck is that? You know, it's just a random ass thing to say and shit. But I mean, man, it just takes you back. It takes you to a moment. Oh yeah, it is right here. Actually, I see the picture right now. It's literally a box with a chair. That's so funny. We'll put it here, right, so you can see that. But also, we'll put it in the supplementary so people can read it and stuff.
But another one-page story that was pretty interesting. It's before the greenhouse effect.
Yeah.
It's the man who came to dinner and lunch and breakfast.
Oh, that's a great story, and it portrays the illustrations of Mouse.
Yes,
I thought that was so crazy, right?
Yeah, and they kind of like. He kind of pokes fun of the idea of like, is this racist?
Yeah, like to portray Jews as mice and Poles as pigs and stuff like that, or like, you know. But the story essentially says of one that's hiding out because of the Nazis around, collecting Jews around, and a bunch of Polish people, a group of Polish people, were kind enough to let this Jew hide. The Jew, again, if you haven't watched our episode of Mouse, the book banned in Tennessee, that tells the story of a person's grandfather in the Holocaust, I highly suggest not only reading the book Mouse, but Art Spiegelman, right? But also, you know, watching the episode because it's a good episode. But essentially, the Jew that was allowed to hide into the Polish people's house, even after the war, he says, "I'm gonna stay." Yeah,
he's like, "Wait, well, in a few days, I gotta find a place to live, a job. You don't mind, do you?" And then
years after years,
9 years passes, and he's like, "Yeah, I've been meaning to. It's on my mind, like about moving out and whatever."
Yeah.
And then another like 7 years passes and he's still not moving out.
Yeah.
And it's just more and more time passes and it hits 1987 and this person's like, oh man, I wonder how many people are still around who don't know Second World War is over.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, was that Zig? I didn't hear you. And it's just this sort of blissful ignorance.
He doesn't want to take part in anything. He just likes where he's at, hiding out.
And I just think it's so funny how he's wearing the On Strike Against NBC shirt in the last panel. And he's just watching TV, just living his best life. And he's just completely blissful.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because it's like, it really...
ignorance is bliss.
It really, and I feel like it almost pokes fun at the idea of this, like, you know, people like to say like, oh, immigrants are lazy, things like that. And so it's like, or refugees or this and that.
Yeah,
so it's
man.
like, it's just, it's funny.
And it's exactly what it needs to be. Instead of going so serious, it kind of brings about that conversation without directing it exactly at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually wanted to bring up why. So at the end of Harvey Picar's, what's it called? Appearances on David Letterman, he wanted to protest David Letterman, NBC in general. And it's because NBC was owned by General Electric, GE.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to read here what exactly why. It says, going on to Harvey Picar's rant, he says, towards GE, plus GE is being sued in Southern Ohio for over $1 billion for selling a defective nuclear reactor that they knew from their own internal reports back in 1975 or earlier had a flawed design. Even though they knew about the design problem, they went ahead and sold it anyway. They sold a bunch of them all over the country, which cost billions to repair. Think they want to publicize that on NBC News? Then their man that they sent over to be president of NBC in September of '86 issues the secret memo in November saying he's thinking of forming a political action committee at NBC and implying that he's going to bring pressure to bear on employees who don't join it. Hey man, it's against federal election laws to try to coerce people to join a PAC. And hey man, I don't like conglomerates in general, but especially not GE. They got a really bad history of law breaking and they got way too much power. They're a military, industrial, financial, communications complex. The military, industrial complexes of the 50s are tame by comparison. So that really goes to show that this guy wasn't just, you know, hating on NBC or David Letterman. He was just literally just knowledgeable on the situation of what was going on, higher up than what David Letterman is shown to be. You think it's David Letterman's show? It's NBC show who's belongs to General Electric.
Yeah,
and Harvey Picar knew all about that shit, man.
I was flipping through my book and I don't know why, but I didn't have that story bookmarked.
Nah, it's right before he appeared on David Letterman.
Is it the grand finale?
It might be. I have it right here actually. But in the grand finale is when he gets basically I don't even think they aired that show. They go to commercial. That's why in the movie when they show it, they
recreate it.
They recreate it rather than show the actual footage.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that's probably why, because of what he did. And I hope that's not the case, but if I do say one of my favorite comics in the whole thing, let's see if I can find it right now because I definitely have it right here. Is The Lost and Found.
Oh, I also had that one bookmarked.
Yeah. The Lost and Found, essentially it tells the story. Essentially it tells the story of Harvey losing his glasses, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Uh-huh.
And there was a certain book that he wanted to get.
Yeah, it was a book.
Yeah. And he thought he had it on his way to work. And he couldn't find it, so he's looking for it all over the place, this place, that place, everywhere. He can't find it at all. And he's telling his wife, Joyce, you know, he's like, I just have a feeling that we have this, my book is somewhere. If anything, I can just go to the bookstore and get it. And Joyce, his wife, has other things to do himself. She has to go to the drugstore, pick up film. And even on their way to the stores, they find the wallet and successfully return it. And as the guy is thanking Harvey's like, yeah, you know, thank you, we got to go. And Harvey's looking, he's just so frustrated. Even when he lost his glasses in the other issue, he really couldn't.
Even before they go to give the guy his wallet, because they find the wallet, and they go home real quick because he's trying to he
look
wants
for the book.
He's trying to look for the book, and I was so curious if you were gonna catch this or not. But the book is there.
Oh, where? Under the chair.
Under the actual phone, or I'm pretty sure that's the phone.
Oh wow!
So the book was there the entire
whole time. That's crazy.
Because immediately when I saw this panel composition, I was like, why are they repeating this frame? And then I saw the book there. And I was like, oh, I'm guessing that's his fucking book. And so then when you go on to when they're actually at the bookstore, you see the exact same cover that he's buying it. So he ends up just buying the book again because he literally thought he lost his copy, which I just thought was so funny.
I can't believe you even fucking caught that, man. Sorry. I can't believe you caught that because when I was looking at how this was put out, I kept getting confused with how everything was put out because I was like, how am I supposed to read this? I kept reading one page at a time, but it spreads across from the left to the right.
Yeah, it's a lot of spreads.
Yeah, man. But I think that's awesome that you caught that. And the reason it's one of my favorite issues is that he kind of realizes the error in his ways. And he's like, hey, let me just take you out to dinner. I'm sorry for how I've acted. And not only has he lost his book, but he lost a bracelet or like an amulet that had a picture of both of them as a couple in it. And throughout everything, after they eat food, Joyce finds some lottery tickets. And she says, maybe because we returned the wallet, we might win these tickets. And they get back home, and she also finds the bracelet that was lost with a picture of them. And she's finding out whether the lottery tickets are worth it or not, and it's worth nothing. And he basically just becomes apologetic for how he was acting, you know?
Yeah, and then Joyce basically has some comics that she wants to get, and then she can't find them. She seems to have gotten them. They got their food on the table and stuff, and she can't find them. Harvey's like, I'll go check the car. He checks the car. They're not in there.
Yeah.
And he's like, maybe you left them back at the store. And so Joyce calls the store, and they do say that they have them there at the store. So Harvey, being super apologetic and just whatnot, decides to go and get the comics.
Regardless if they were about to have dinner, right? They were about to have dinner, sit down, and he's like, you want those comics? I will get you those comics.
And I think it's like that. Also, what I noted is that this is the longest story in the whole thing at 22 pages.
Wow.
And it just ends in such a Harvey Picar way where it's like, I felt like this was so out of character for him to be so nice and all this stuff and whatever. And they're finally eating, and it's like, oh, wow, this is nice. And it ends with, I'm just glad to see I'm not the only adult on our street who wants instant gratification.
And that's like, you can see how fucking playful and human he is. And again, I just think it shows how much he loves his wife. And actually, yo, I think I do gotta go now.
Oh, okay.
What
What song is that?
What's it called? Jenny from the Block.
Jenny from the Block.
It's the best song ever. What?
So we're back.
We're back, and we never left. It's like.
Yeah, we never left. To the audio listeners, you won't even know a thing. To the visual listeners,
oh shit,
we're wearing completely different clothes.
Oh no, yeah. There's no way around that. I'm trying to think of something, but I'm wearing a different hat, with my Dallas hat.
We're wearing completely different clothes.
Yeah, man.
There's different things on the table.
I got kombucha. By the way, guys, I have mentioned it to everybody and their mom. I've been drinking a bunch of kombucha lately. Just wanted to put that out into the universe. That shit is good, man. Kombucha. Nah.
What the fuck?
Because it's a joke. Like, yo, you know kombucha?
Kombucha who?
Come put your nuts in my mouth.
God damn it.
Hey, yo. That was an hey, yo
fucking
moment.
Cancel the show. Let's start over.
I fucked up the joke too, bro. to the worst way possible. Anyway, yeah, so we never left, audio listeners, but tell them what actually happened, Javi. What have you just gone through?
It's been a couple days. It's been a couple days.
Yeah,
did my showcase stuff.
Yeah.
And pretty eventful in terms of with what we're reading here.
Hell yeah, Harvey Picar.
Yeah, definitely. We mentioned it before we started filming, but one of the stories that was pretty notable, or that rang a bell, was the one where we mentioned it earlier, but the one where he goes to the convention, or the comic book signing, and no one really shows up.
Yeah.
So
okay, perfect. That's a perfect way to come back from it. And to recap, it's a whole different day from when we originally started, and we've never done this before. We've never started an episode on one day and continued the next.
Yeah,
but to be short with it, I don't have that much time that day, and from here on forward, that won't happen as much. But yeah, now we found a different time just to put on an episode for our one listener in Spain.
Yeah.
We got that one listener in Spain. So, Earth Mind Matters is international at this point, right? We got Netherlands, Spain, the US. Damn, bro.
But from what I remember, we definitely talked about a lot of the one-page stories.
Yes.
We talked about the mouse one. Mm-hmm. We talked about the weed one and the Oregon box.
Yes.
We talked about Lost and Found.
Mm-hmm. David Letterman appearances from
David Letterman appearances. Yeah. One story that I was curious about that I wanted to bring up was Weekend.
Weekend, okay.
It's basically just about Harvey's weekend, and this one was. I brought it up just because it was a little confusing, just because of this spread right here. We'll put it on the visual.
Oh, yes. I have that more put up. Here. Definitely to describe it, and if I'll describe it as I'm looking at it for the audio. It's 2 pages fully, and it's incredibly interesting because there's a person. I mean, I can't even describe it. That's how complex it is. But it's kind of just not a mirage. What's it? Montage. What's it called? A mural.
A mural. I know the word.
You know the word I'm talking about. It's like a collage. It's like a collage of all the characters involved, and it's beautifully done. I think it's one of the best art pages in the book, in my opinion, because of how complicated it is. And yeah, in terms of comic book, there's bubbles everywhere. And what I found hard for this 2-page frame is reading it. I don't know which direction to go, and maybe was that intentional or not?
I mean, I definitely, because the way that I tried to read it was I tried to read it going this way from left to right on the top, and then this is where I got lost because then I started to read these bubbles more in the center, and I realized that didn't make sense. And what the artist intended is for you to follow the car back to the left side of the page to then start again from over here.
So it's kind of, for the audio listeners again, it's kind of like a map of the whole scene, and you have to kind of follow the direction of the cars portrayed within the frames, showing pictures of Harvey and the old lady who makes the sandwich. Was it? She has the records, right? So what's the story about? So we can actually explain that.
So pretty much, it's Harvey. It starts off with him having a bad time driving, which I think the story has a great opening because he runs into someone that's kind of a motorcyclist that's kind of just speeding along and whatever.
Yeah. And
I
remember this.
They're at like a stoplight and whatever. And the motorcyclist's like, "What are you doing, jerk? I own this lane." Harvey goes, "Fuck you, you dumb asshole. You don't own any lane. You're just driving up the outside of everyone else's lane." Yeah. And the motorcyclist goes, "Oh yeah, pull over." And Harvey's thinking to him, and Harvey tells him, "I'll pull over at the top of the hill where I normally turn, shithead." And the motorcyclist responds, "Yeah, because you're jeopardizing my safety." And Harvey's just like getting in his head of like, "Oh man, am I really gonna fight this guy?" and whatever. Like, is he really serious right now? And it's kind of leading up to the top of the hill where he's gonna make his turn. And he gets there and he's like, "Here's a turn." Guess I'll give the guy a reminder. And he points his finger out the window.
Like, wait for me there.
Yeah, and he goes out and he gets out of the car and the motorcyclist doesn't show up. And he's just like, "I figured he wouldn't follow." Well, that's that. Not to get on with the weekend. And that's how the story opens up.
It's kind of like you think it's going in that direction of this feud between driver and driver, but really it's just a small part of the day that's to be later on.
Yeah, and a friend and him go to a bookshop where they start filling up a bunch of their books and stuff, and they're able to pick those up.
And if I'm not mistaken, the woman has a lot of books, and she says all of them are for sale except the ones that are particularly records or something like that. Not records like music records, like a record book.
Her reference books.
Her reference books. And those are not for sale because they would be very expensive if they were for sale. And so essentially they're shopping in this and trying to get as much books as possible. Harvey Pekar loved buying books for sure.
Yeah, and they're just kind of hanging out. They're talking about the books that they have and whatnot. They're talking a little bit about like sci-fi and whatever. And then here he gets onto another drive where the cops start pulling up behind him, and he's speeding. And he has this really intense moment where the cop's like, "I clocked you at 65 in a 35-mile zone." And Harvey's response in his head is just, everything was going so well, and then this happens.
Yeah.
Let's see, I got 6 points now, although 2 are coming off in 6 weeks. Damn, I hate this. I know it's gonna fuck me out for a couple days. I just don't like the state having anything over me, like traffic points. It's so easy to pick them up. If some cockamamie suburb wants some more revenue, and they tag you for doing 27 on a 25-mile zone. On the other hand, nothing that unfair has happened to me. I've only gotten 5 moving violations since 1957, but 3 of them have happened the last 3 years. I should be able to avoid tickets if I just remember to be careful. How do I get myself out of the fucked up mood I'm in now, though? I know in 3 or 4 days I'll shake it and things will fall into place. Why don't they fall into place now?
Yeah.
And he's just getting in his head. He's so fucking like...
And that's how he really thinks, though. Even in the earlier... I think one of the first things we talked about was when he was getting upset with his editor. And he was just going back and forth, having this feud in his own mind, saying, well, should I be talking about this? And he's like, well, that's who I am. It's pretty much why I would define myself. And people think, I'm not a feminist because I yell at women, but I argue with them. It's just the way I talk. Just this back and forth banter that just goes on between every little crevice of the actual moments of life.
And the movie has a moment where it kind of shows that where he's at the supermarket and he's waiting in line behind that old
Jewish lady.
The old Jewish lady. And
in the movie he has 2 choices: go in front of a line that has like 2 to 3 people with a lot of groceries, or a line that has 1 Jewish lady with some with minimal groceries. So he's like, hey, let me take my chances with the he says going to the supermarket
it kind of freezes because then it pulls up like the thought bubble.
Real life turns to comic book.
Yeah, and it has like the thought bubble, and like it has him like kind of thinking in his head like
going to the supermarket is an everyday like sport almost. Yeah. And then he goes behind the Jewish lady, and the Jewish lady's like, listen, I'm gonna buy all 6 of these. Usually they sell for 12, but I'm gonna buy 6, so you should only charge me $1.50 for each. And he's like, you can get the manager if you want. And Harvey Picker just getting frustrated. He's like, he's like, how basically, and he's like, oh, Jewish women, they will all do this and shit. And man, I just think it's interesting because I still think to this day, of course, there are many people like that. Even in my head, I feel like when people are like that or do that in their head, they feel like they're crazy, but they're just being a human being. You ever hear about people who say they don't think in their head like words or sentences? They just kind of have things blank. Like there are some people who, I don't know how true this is. This is just something I see people post.
Okay.
But there are some people who just don't talk to themselves in their head.
That's interesting.
I'd be having full blown conversations and just scenarios in my head all the time.
I mean, I talk to myself out loud sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's just interesting. To those people, good luck, good shit for you. I don't know what else to say to you.
Talk to someone.
Talk to you yourself. You have a lot to say to yourself.
Take a good look in the mirror.
Facts.
John.
Escutia. Whoever that is.
But the weekend story ends on a pretty meta way where it kind of breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Where it just kind of ends with him looking away, and he says, yeah, let nature take its course and try not to worry too much about worrying. And then the last panel is the artist erasing the next panel.
Oh, wow. Let me see. That's so cool. That part I don't remember. And kind of like in Maus, the Art Spiegelman comic book, it's a comic within a comic. This is pretty much what it's portraying at the end of it.
Yeah.
It's like coming to an end from the actual writer's perspective. But that's cool as fuck.
Yeah, that was a notable story for me. I like that one. Except for that one spread with the car. That was just a little too confusing.
Too confusing. It was beautiful. It was visually beautiful, but it was too confusing to follow.
Yeah, just like the composition of it. It's just like it's a little too hard to follow.
And it's kind of like jazz for comic books. And I have a story pulled up here. It's a 1-page one. It's traditional male chauvinism. It's kind of so. First of all, the reason it's kind of hard to reference these books, we have the books in front of us, but there's no numbers to these pages. This book is as thick as, what is it as thick as?
It says thick as you.
Hey, yo. For reference. Anyway, to traditional male chauvinism, I'm gonna read it real quick because I really like this. And again, just something. First of all, not a lot of people are reading comic books that are, not a lot of people are reading American Splendor, and it's around here. Look at the back pages, right?
Okay.
And it reads this. It's Harvey and a friend walking together. Harvey says, I hear you've been trying to pick up women at encounter sessions at the Unitarian Church. How you been making out? And the guy says, that's all over with. They threw me out. Harvey says, they threw you out? What for? The guy he's talking to says, well, there's a couple of ways you can try to get over in those meetings. You can act real compassionate, like you're a real true friend of women and understand all their problems and are in complete sympathy with them. Or you can just say some outrageous stuff and throw the meeting into a turmoil. That way, at least you get attention. So, me, I don't shrink from controversy. He continues to say, I took a strong stand. I said a man should never play a woman's way on a date until he got some ass from her. Then at least he would be paying an appreciation and not bribery. Harvey says, so they threw you out for saying that, huh? He says, yeah. Harvey says, well, Freddie, you got to expect that. You're a controversial dude. and it's kind of hard to if you're hearing me, I hope you understand. He's basically saying, I love what he says there. He's like, again, I took a strong stand. I said a man should never pay a woman's way on a date until he got some ass from her. Then at least he would be paying an appreciation and not bribery. And it's this funny take of, this guy's just trying to get laid.
Yeah.
And he's like, why am I going to do all this nice stuff for something that I want? It's like you're bribing me, and it's a silly way to express.
It's like that joke of sex isn't free.
Exactly. You gotta work for that shit, whatever. And I love how what he's saying is so elongated. It's so, he could just say that in a simple way. Like, I'm just trying to get ass or I'm not going to do this shit, right? And that's how the title kind of correlates. It says traditional male chauvinism, where he could have just put men.
It's because just like how you said that, it's like he could have just made the title men, but the fact that he calls it traditional male chauvinism, it's like, we love to just try and spin it our way to make it sound like we're just actually, as a matter of fact, I'm a really good guy. I deserve some ass.
Yeah, because of all I've done in my, legacy
as a man,
as a person with gonads. And it's really dope. I really think it's a dope little comic, and I love that there's one-page comics as well. Because, like you mentioned earlier, Lost and Found is a 22-page comic. And some people, we were talking about TikTok earlier, right? Today, we were talking about TikTok earlier and how attention span has decreased. I feel like reading these comics, you really got to sit down, take your time, and put yourself somewhere else. Because I will say this for sure. As I was reading this, when I got in the zone, I got in the zone. But many times I got distracted. AutoZone.
Nice.
Sponsor. Many times I would read this, and if I got in it, I would be reading for hours straight. But then I would pick up my phone, play a game of FIFA, eat, which is not really a distracting thing. It's like a survival thing.
How dare you fucking eat? Why didn't you try and eat and read at the same time, asshole? Come on.
Ass, bro. Michael Jordan would have done it.
Kobe would have.
Damn, rest in peace. Rest in pieces.
I just love how you froze there when I said that.
We don't joke about Kobe, bro. We could joke about his daughter, but not him. JK. J.K. Rowling, who talked about trans people badly. Oh.
You can talk shit about her.
But not Harry Potter.
Not that scar.
Not that
beautiful
scar. That ass. Happy mistakes.
That was a happy mistake.
That ass. I've only seen the first Harry Potter, Javi.
The fuck?
Yeah, bro.
What the fuck?
Only the first.
Now, you know what is also a difficult story that I couldn't read that I genuinely just skipped because of how difficult it was to read?
Which one?
A Semi-Bummer Weekend.
Okay.
And the reason why this one was so difficult to read was because the lettering was difficult to read.
Did you skip over it or did you try to read the whole thing?
I tried to read the first few pages and I couldn't do it. I was like, yo, I'm going to lose my eyes reading this.
So to describe to the audience, I also had an incredibly hard time reading this, and I forced myself to read the whole thing, but I couldn't intake the story because of the lettering. And so that's how cool. I'm actually happy you brought it up because I wasn't going to, because it was hard to talk about the substance of the comic. But in this comic book, whatever it's about, I think it's just because it was reprinted into the anthology. It might have come out way thicker, but all the words are really thick and kind of like bold
Yeah,
font.
like ultra bold.
And they're so stuck together where you have to. And then Harvey doesn't write some words fully, so he'll write to say like the word to, like to go. He'll write T apostrophe go.
Yeah.
So because of all that, reading was very difficult. And it's just interesting. And I wanted to bring up before we started this podcast, and you would tell me about comic books when we did Mask NYC and shit, MSK NYC, YouTube that shit. You told me that there's different aspects to comic books. There's a letterer, there's the writer, the illustrator, there's more and more, right? And even on the front, we see that. I never knew that at all. I always thought it was a writer and an illustrator, and that's it. So a letterer who does the actual bubbles, right?
Well, it doesn't credit any letterer for most of these stories. So half the times you have to assume that the letterer was the artist.
The artist, okay.
Because it says story by Harvey P. Carr and then art by you see, I can't even read this dude's name. I think it's Kevin Brown.
Well, he didn't deserve us to read his name if you can't read it. No, just kidding, Kevin Brown.
But I think you can just default as like the artist was the letterer if there's not a letterer straight up credited. Because even on the cover, there's no letterer credited.
Nothing, right? It's just artist and Harvey P. Carr who wrote all the stories.
So it's, I would imagine every artist did their own lettering, especially at that time. That's just that was more common for underground comics and whatever. Because that's definitely something I don't think we even brought up before, but these were part of sort of underground comics, which back then was basically what we call indie comics today.
Okay.
It's just stuff that's self-published by people and whatever. It's not like big published or anything
major,
like that.
Batman or this and that. Like it's kind of just what you want to do. Not you particularly, but just anybody that's an individual who's not part of some big group. It's just kind of that.
Yeah. So, but I know we kind of talked about it because it was in the movie, but I definitely bookmarked double feature part 2, Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh man, nerds. For the reason I keep doing that voice is in the movie his best friend is Toby. Right? I had to say it like that. And you know what was really cool? Before like that's like spoil whatever we're gonna say. I saw the movie before we ever talked about this. Again, randomly, I didn't know who this was, but I just enjoyed the movie. And this character was so particular, and I'm like, this is based off of real life. All the whole movie's based off real life and done really well in that sense. But this guy was really like that. This guy, just to briefly portray him, he talks like this. Harvey, I want to know about what you're doing today, Harvey. You know, he does that. He has glasses. He has a belly that sticks out. He has like that cliche haircut to the side, pens in his pocket. And the actor who played him did his best impression of him, and the movie stops. And then the actual Toby comes out and is actually the character who Harvey draws in the book.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Nerd. I just love saying his fucking voice.
Yeah, he has a pretty funny voice, but he also just seems like a really like genuinely nice guy.
Yeah.
Like,
and this is just a voice that comes, I feel like Harvey treated him as such.
Yeah, because again, in the movie, Joyce kind of points out that like it definitely seems like Toby's like borderline autistic or whatever the case is, but that's never really mentioned at any point ever. And so I think that kind of speaks to Harvey's character, where it's like he didn't necessarily discriminate against like
he's gonna talk to you the same way he talks to the guy who passed him on the highway or the guy who sells fruit, like a human being, and however he reciprocates your emotions. Yeah, which is the best way to talk to people. I don't think some people. They get around somebody with a mental disability or a speech impediment or this or that or whatever, and they feel the need to change their way of acting, you know, like, oh, I should be more sensitive or this and that, you know. And to an extent, I guess in certain areas and people, yes, you know, when you know, in terms of like somebody who's blind, you're not gonna be like, look at this. You know, you're gonna explain it to them. But I really like that. I think it's a good example, and I think it's really fair just in general. And I think a lot of people today are scared and dance around topics like that, you know, and really realistically, people want to be treated like human beings, not like a special case person, you know? And I agree.
I mean, with this story, because they kind of redo it in the movie, but there's a bit of a difference from the movie versus what happens in the comic.
Yes.
Because they're going out for a walk and whatever, and Toby is telling him about the movie, about Revenge of the Nerds, and about how he wants to go see it, and or that he had seen it already. So in the movie, it seems like that Toby is just gonna go watch the movie by himself and whatever, but then it cuts ahead to them all watching it in the movie. All of them being Toby, Harvey, and Joyce. But in the comic, it specifies that when all three of them go watch it, it's Toby's second time watching the movie. And
he drove 260 miles to go see it or something.
Yeah, the first time.
I like how they quoted that exactly in the movie though. Like a lot of the speech itself was quoted from the comic to the movie, and I really enjoyed that part of it. And
what a big difference too is that in the movie, like Harvey is immediately just hating on it and like just saying his opinions on it and basically telling Toby that he shouldn't fall into this sort of like Hollywood propaganda bullshit and whatever.
Because Toby feels like he himself is a nerd, and this movie's finally representing nerds as a superior character rather than the ones that are being picked on and like dirt in the whatever. And rather that they're the heroes in this movie. And quick fact, like I've never watched Revenge of the Nerds fully.
Neither have I.
But I've when I was younger. This is the only thing I remember from the Revenge of the Nerds scene that is at the end, and one of them goes, there's jocks, the nerds, and like the hot girls or whatever, and the hot girl I think is about to have sex with a nerd or something, and she's like, oh my god, like I'm paraphrasing OD. She's like, how did you learn to do that? He's like, and the nerd is like, let's call her Stacy. Stacy, the jocks and the cool kids, all they worry about is how they look and playing sports and all that stuff all day, every day. The nerds, all we think about is sex all the time, every time, all day. And then in my head, I'm like, oh, it's pretty good logic right there. But then Harvey proceeds to tell like how this movie isn't portraying nerds, right?
Yeah, he's just kind of like, it's portraying more like white suburbia and whatever. And
once
like,
they graduate, they'll have good jobs.
Yeah, and
good
they won't
money.
be nerds anymore and whatever.
And Toby says, you're funny, Harvey.
That's what's the difference, because in the movie he kind of says that but then just kind of ignores him, and then he and Joyce kind of get into what they liked about the movie. But in the comic, Harvey doesn't say this stuff to Toby until the next day.
Oh, okay. So he lets him savor the movie and everything.
Yeah, like he really sits down with it, and he doesn't tell him until the next day, like a week later, and he tells him all that stuff, and it still ends with him with Toby just being like, he says, that was pretty good what you said about them living in big houses in the suburbs, because he laughs, and Harvey's like, what's so funny? And that's his response, and that's the end of the story.
That's dope.
And it's like, it definitely just pokes fun at the fact that it's like, you can put the issue right in front of someone's face, and they'll be like, lol.
Toby, bro. And the character is so dope, and I just really love. There's a certain scene which this will put up not only in the supplementary but in the YouTube video, where the real Toby and Harvey are standing in the set while Jim Giuliani, what's his name?
Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti.
Giamatti.
Him and the actor who plays Toby, they're sitting behind the actual Toby and Harvey, watching them interact, the real ones. And Paul is just kind of laughing to himself, watching them interact, talking about jelly beans and stuff, like watching the ones they're portraying interact. I love it because it just seems like it was all done in good
taste.
Yeah, man, like real, like this is not to make fun. Exactly, just to portray his story. And I feel like they really had to do that, observe one another, talk to one another, and be with one another. And I love how they portrayed Joyce. I feel like they got Joyce's character physically, on point, and everybody. And even despite me saying that, Harvey's like, so they're gonna tell my story of this movie, even though this guy looks nothing like me, and just how he's so Harvey Picard every second of the way.
Yeah, he doesn't stop.
Never. There's no stopping.
He never turns it off.
Yeah, man, it's who he is. And even when he was younger, how he walks around just all like, disgruntled and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it was so funny. Like Paul Giamatti's face is just scrunched up like the entire movie.
And he's always scratching his head. All you hear in the movie is this. Hold on. Every time he talks, it's like, this and this. You hear scratching all the time, and it's I'm fucked up right now. My earphones fell off. But this is a story that I really enjoy. I really love Lost and Found. Like that was something that really hit. But I guess my second favorite one is the one called Pre-Dawn Ride.
Pre-Dawn Ride?
Yeah. It's a very simple comic book too. And it's essentially Harvey saying, it starts off with Harvey calling Joyce, and he says, Joyce is saying, on the phone. I'm gonna come in the morning at 6:22. She's like, I could take the rapid transit home. And Harvey's like, no, it's okay. You know, you gotta do all this stuff. I might as well pick you up. So he stays up all night till 4:30 a.m. Brushes his teeth, and he sees his cat. And his cat's like, meow, 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 trying to eat. And Harvey says, all right, keep your shirt on, will you? He says to himself in the thought bubble. 12 years old, and he still acts like a maniac about food. When he's going to mellow out, he gets fed every day. When's he going to mellow out? He gets food every day. Then he goes outside. It's completely dark. And the reason this resonates is because, you know, you more recently, but for me, for a while, I've been waking up at like 5 a.m. in the morning, 4:30 a.m. in the morning to head out to responsibility, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's like he was going to mention it here, but it's kind of a blessing to be out there and when everybody's asleep. You know, a little ominous for sure, too, because it's dark depending on when you are. But I love being up early in the morning for sure. You know, there's a whole section of the morning you're missing when you wake up at 10, 12, 11. You know,
I try to wake up at 9 a.m. usually. More, but the latest I'll try and wake up is 10. But I don't like waking up early, man.
Yeah, nah,
it's
man.
hard.
I can't blame you because sometimes you just want to be asleep, you know. But for me, especially when I told you when I was in Dallas, right? I woke up randomly at 3 a.m. Used the bathroom. I got out, and I was like, you know, like I'm just gonna watch Hangover 3. And then I worked on the Kurt Cobain supplementary stuff and all that stuff. And it just felt nice to be up while the sun was coming up. But then I knocked the fuck out, to be fair. So Harvey leaves his house. It's 5:45 a.m. He says, feels funny starting out so early while it's still dark. It's pleasant, though. He says, no traffic problems. It'll about take me half an hour to get to the airport. So he's enjoying the highway. He's observing more. He's like, they took away the barriers and the car zoom passes him, right? And he says, where's that asshole rushing? He'll run into a red light in 2 blocks. You got to time the lights so you hit him all right with them rolling. Says, made it. He makes it down to the airport. He makes all the lights. And it says, God, look at them wide open spaces. Nobody believes this used to be full of people. Hold on. And then he spent,
Holden.
Oh. I was like, what are you talking about? And then, you know, he's just driving around. He passes his turn, so he does another U-turn. Everything's going so smoothly because he has open space. And then we get to this frame. It's like a cross frame right here.
Okay.
Right? And the way to describe it is Harvey's face is in the middle of the page. And on the top is his car. On top and the bottom is his car. And the left and right is the highway.
So I'll tell you some comic jargon.
Please do.
So when when a certain like one page fills up 2 pages, that's called a spread.
A spread. So
Yeah.
it's a spread page.
A spread page.
Okay.
But when it's just 1 page fully, it's called a splash page.
Splash page. I've heard you use that term a lot. So if you're reading left to right from page left to page right, that's a spread page.
Yeah.
And when the whole, like the one is, so what would you consider the one we talked about earlier?
Weekend.
Yeah.
That was the spread.
That was a spread because it went all around both pages and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Nice. So so with this, so we go on to the splash page and it's Harvey's face in the middle. He says, no cops to worry about till Lindell. Let me open it up. Still rides nice. 85, good old Toyota. And he says, the breeze is nice. So he's coming up to the airport and then he remembers a part of the highway is on where he gets stopped by a cop. And essentially, you know, he's just going through the motions of getting to the airport. This is not a story that tells a story. This is really just a story that tells, again, the story of going from one place to another, but just so early in the morning where he has the highway open to himself. He gets to the airport. There's open spaces. He says, you know, he there's no worries of parking or people or all that anxiety you get when you go into the airport. I feel like once you get to the airport, for me in particular, there's just like this, you know, every second until you leave the airport, and it just goes like you're in the airport, you're flying, and then once you walk up the airport, it's, and then you get to exist until you go back, and it's okay. Now go back at the airport, TSA, you know, security. Take your shoes off, peanuts, you know, and then you get back home, you know, and it's so nerve wracking. And then at the end of this whole comic book, Harvey just looks off to the airport as he's waiting for Joyce, and he says, the sun's coming up. and ends. and I just that. It's nothing crazy, nothing wow, but to me I really enjoyed that because it's just nice, man. It's just nice to appreciate little things in life.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the stories that kind of really just shows like one of the pleasures in his life, because there's a lot of pain and not necessarily like sad pain, but just like anger and things like that. His stories and rage. Mm-hmm. So it was one of the few stories throughout the book where it's more blissful than anything. Yeah,
man, for sure. And that's nice to have. And, even the people that you think are the most angriest or this and that, they enjoy what they enjoy on their own time. Doesn't necessarily have to be what you enjoy all the time,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, overall, like the book doesn't have... While the book and his stories have some sort of continuation, as we've seen with the David Letterman stories and whatnot, there's no like ending to this.
Or like
the book.
Moral. There's no moral to the story either, there's no lessons. Well, I guess there's.
The movie tries to kind of do that, and which I personally found a little hypocritical, because it's like it opens up with like, this isn't a movie about a hero and this and that and whatever. This isn't a happy like ending and whatever. But it's like, well, he's not like at that point by the movie, at the end of the movie, he's not dead from cancer. He and his wife now have a kid.
Yeah, and they wrote a story that got a bunch of awards and this and that.
They did well from their story, and it's like that seems like a happy ending to me.
and you're right. But didn't Joyce say about Harvey? Because I just got this thought. Breaking news, fresh in. Harvey and his wife Joyce on the screen of the movie were saying and talking. And Joyce says, "Well, Harvey likes to be depressed. He likes to tell stories, and only the depressing part of the stories, because that's what people find the most interesting, right? And you know how they say misery loves company, all that stuff. And maybe it could just be that how things are beautiful in Harvey's life, but he's telling the story of his own life through his comics, so he'll never tell it in the way that it's supposed to be in terms of its beauty. So." You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, I would still just say that I guess I don't necessarily disagree, but I would just say that like I still think that the movie is just kind of hypocritical of just like ending it on that sort of high note, because I just think that's sort of the Hollywood of it. It's like like one of the execs were like, we can't end it like this.
We got to make it like be good at the end or something like that.
So
how does it end in the end? Like, what's the final?
It ends where it's
him just walking.
Harvey walks,
retirement, right?
The girl to the bus stop. She gets on the bus and then he starts walking away, and then it cuts to real Harvey Picar walking, and then he has a little retirement thing at his job. That's
the part that made me really sad. That's the part that I actually ended up like crying to, like when he was having his retirement thing and everything. Just because. Again, I just think that he's just somebody who's misunderstood, and maybe not misunderstood to the extent where
so all white people are misunderstood.
Duh. KKK. No, I just mean that somebody who's to the end, Harvey Picar, like we say, like he's always like this, always this grumpy old man, like, like from the Seven Dwarfs, grumpy. He kind of can't get out of this, that there's still beautiful things surrounding him always. But really, maybe it's not that he's grumpy or this, he's just being himself.
Yeah.
And we just portray people as, this or that, or, somebody who like resting bitch face, like, oh, why are you so mad? It's like, this is how I look, So for Harvey, it's like, oh, why are you so grumpy? It's like, this is how I exist. Like, this is how I look at the world, and it's interesting. I mean, for me, I kind of agree too. Like the comics captured more of him than I ever would have imagined. The movie kind of just gets you a little more in there, and I think if they hadn't included the real life Harvey Picar in the movie, it wouldn't have been as good.
No, I don't think so.
Nowhere near.
Because that was definitely like some of the more enjoyable parts of the movie, where it does like kind of get more documentary, like where it's just straight up the like sort of fake set and him just talking to the camera.
Yeah,
I mean the fact that like they had the camera on him narrating the fucking thing, it's like that's cool.
It's amazing, and just in terms of director, that I don't know who directed it. I didn't check that out. I think we should mention that. Be right there. Boom. But it's pretty cool. And I wrote something after reading it, just because I feel like with this I wanted to write something. I wrote immediately after finishing the anthology. I just did a big accomplish, like a sigh, accomplish, but just thought these comics would continue endlessly. Like I thought the book would never stop. like a new one would sprout. It hurts that at the end, there are just 6 to 8 blank pages. It made me want to fill it with comics of my own. Harvey isn't alive anymore, but he'll live forever in these comic books. American Splendor just captures every day and moment, summing it up visually, but ultimately turns the norm into a comic book. These stories are relatable. There's one for everyone. They're sweet and truly unbelievable. Whether it's his war with David Letterman or his compassion with his wife, Harvey Picard was not afraid to be himself. More people can learn from that mindset, which was flawed for sure, but expressed with the outlook of comic books. I wish I could have met him, but I'm sure that would have been interesting in itself. But the ultimate honor is to turn a moment with Harvey Picard into American Splendor. And I wrote, rest in peace, Harvey Picard. And in regards to the movies, I just wrote one sentence, maybe two. To sum it up, the movie does a great job, mostly because Harvey Picard was actually in it, narrating. The actor who played him did great, but the comics are just so unique because they aren't. I really wish the book didn't end. They capture moments in time in a very special brain, you know?
Yeah.
And
nice.
Yeah, bro, like this book was, yeah. It's just, there's just so much to talk about because there isn't. Again, like it's just not, there's nothing crazy, you know, there's nothing crazy about this aside from the fact that it's just enjoyable and pleasing and really just passes you by.
Yeah,
you know?
I've always been a fan of sort of like stories and like TV shows and movies that are just kind of what I call a slice of life, where it's like a day in the life type of thing and whatever. Like just some off the top of my head, like I would say Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is kind of like a slice of life movie. Ooh. Lady Bird is like a slice of life movie.
I never watched Lady Bird.
Oh, Lady Bird is very good.
Is that a dog movie?
No, it's it's just
King of the Hill. The dog's name is Lady Bird.
Lady Bird is just about this high school chick who is just, it's like a coming of age movie, and she's about to go to college, and it's just like she doesn't know what she's doing with her life and all of that stuff.
It's like a scenario. I think of what's that movie with not Jonah Hill, Michael Cera.
Super Bad?
No. That's kind of as day in the life. It's kind of like Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Pilgrim?
No, it's kind of like that. It's like Nick and Jonah something playlist.
Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist.
Yeah, I feel like that movie, even though it's kind of
the third time that movie's been referenced to me in the last week.
What is
going on? Like, clearly I have to watch this movie.
Introducing our new guest, Michael Cera. Everybody make some noise. Woo. Hey. That's all the time I have right now. Thank you, Michael Cera. I appreciate you. No problem. That was actually Michael Cera, people. Swear to God. I wouldn't lie to you like that. There's one comic I wanted to read just because, oh man, there's so much that I would like to read that I bookmark here, but I'm not going to do that all the way. But it's more of another like sexual comic book. There was some comic books that had some nudity in them too, where it's funny, man. but this one is it's a good shit is best, and it's really towards the end of the book. It looks like this. Okay, and this doesn't have Harvey Picard. It just has 4, exaggeratedly drawn characters. And character 1, let's call him character 1, 2, 3, 4. Character 1 says, well, I had a good fuck last night. He said, I was humping and screwing like mad. The broad I was with could really go nearly wore me out. Character 2 says, well, fucking is okay, but I'll tell you, I like to get my cock sucked better. Character number 3 says, he continues to say, when a chick goes down you and gobbles your dick up in her mouth and starts licking around your knob, man, that's heaven. The guy, character 4, flicks a cigarette. And character 3 says, maybe I shouldn't tell you guys, you might think I'm weird, but I like to eat pussy. When I see a cunt, I go down on it like a dog. He says, you can really get a broad crazy like that. Just dive in and suck up all that juice and hair in her mouth. I drive him nuts. The first character says, a pussy eater, eh? I wouldn't admit that if I was you. The second character says, well, what the fuck? Give him credit for being honest. And the last guy says, hey, what is this? What is this? What are you guys, sex fiends or something? He says, the best thing is a good shit. You can't beat it. He says, you go up to that toilet all tight and heavy inside, then you dump your load. Now admit it. Don't you feel good, relaxed, at peace with the world? And all 3 characters, they go, well, you got a point. in a way, you might be right. And the guy who likes to take a shit says, fuck it, I am right. When I say something, you better believe I know what I'm talking about. That's the whole story. And let me tell you, man, I took a shit today. Oh, way better afterwards. And everybody listening, you took a shit today too. And if you didn't, eat your vegetables.
Well, Kim Jong-un didn't.
Oh, Kim Jong-un doesn't shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, he doesn't. North Korea and us strictly believe that Kim Jong-un, who is the embodiment of North Korea, doesn't shit.
Yeah, he doesn't shit, man.
They also say he invented the burrito.
I mean, he did. But he... What?
Oh, wait. Special guest Kim Jong-un just walking to the house. Woo!
Oh, no way!
Wait. Let's bow. So, Kim Jong-un, what'd you have to say? Hey. That's all the time Kim Jong-un has. We don't have time for games. Man. Why you sound like Michael Cera? But yeah, man, that's fucking. There's so much. Harvey Pico is a real legend, man. Jesus Christ.
At my showcase yesterday, I actually referenced this book to someone that I was talking to.
Nice.
An older guy. He was like in his 60s or so, and he had been reading comics for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I was telling him like, yeah, I love reading some classics and things like that and whatever. I told him about some of the older books that I've read and whatever. Yeah. And I was like, right now, I actually just went through American Splendor, and immediately he was like, oh, I mean, American Splendor is like whole collection of artists. He referenced Bob Crumb or something like that. Yeah, something like that. He referenced Crumb immediately, and I was like, oh wow, this guy like he knows. Man. And so
that's so dope, man. Because that really, for us, it's the history of it, but some people live through it. You know?
And now I'm just hyped and happy that I can say that it's like I know who Harvey Picard is. Man. I've read his stuff.
Yeah, bro, and I am too, man. For me, again, that movie was the only entrance into his mind that I got. But really, because of this podcast, we're able to just venture into somebody's brain who was a huge part of of the whole world. There's only so little space you could take up with somebody's mind. But this guy really took a big part for me, in terms of, what the brain can handle and take in. It really is a special read, and it might not be for everybody, especially today. There's so much things in there. Even from what you've heard us said right now, you might be hearing these comics and be like, oh, well, that doesn't excite me as much. And, normal life is how you take it. And I find myself...
He quite literally says it himself at some point in the movie where he's like, normal life is complex.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's worth taking a look at.
Yeah, man. And even earlier how we mentioned in the episode how when the John guy came up to you and he's like, oh, no, he said, this is outrageous, Facebook. And then my head was like, whoop, my head went up and I was like, that is something Harvey Pico would probably pick up on, because he was a nerd. And we didn't mention, but basically Toby, the character who sounds like that, he loved White Castle. Mm-hmm. He loved White Castle so much. And he ended up actually getting a commercial for White Castle
from MTV.
Even though they really and I like that. Just to continue with it, actually, so what they made Toby do in the commercial was pretty kind of lacking dignity. They made him like dance,
like a spectacle almost.
Yeah, like a cliche like cartoon come to life nerd, and all of it was kind of whatever. Like he was wearing crazy glasses. They put his hair up in crazy spikes. He was doing a weird dance. But it was in the end, he was like, I'm going to do spring break here. And at the end, he does a laugh like, like they force him to do that laugh. And that's when Harvey was like, I get what the world's trying to do right now. They're trying to take people like me and Toby and turn us into these, like, what is it, spectacles or freaks and, something we aren't. And taking away what, like, our value is really there, but they're trying to paint it into some weird disaster of a portrayal. And I mean, I feel like that happens today. I in all types of ways, especially with media. But I think of like not just rappers, but just all young artists that are making this goddamn garbage music today. That are just doing outrageous things. Looking stupid as fuck. And just man, I can make my own music. But it just calm myself down.
Calm down, Frankie. Calm down.
There's just so much. I know, and even in the past, all these people were pushed and they pressured into this way to portray themselves because they were told that would be popular. But then you get somebody like Ed Sheeran who just looks the same everywhere he goes and just sing. He's an average Joe, but he sings like a great motherfucker. And you don't gotta do some crazy shit like Lil Nas X, just untalented trash. You know what I mean? Just And I'm not saying, you know, he's untalented because his stuff that he does in the videos is outrageous. His just music sucks. You know?
I can't wait to see what people say to that.
How dare you? Lil Nas X is a new Eminem. Yeah, whatever, bro. This one sucks too. Just saying.
But
anyway.
I mean, I don't think I have any more stories I wanted to point out. All I gotta say is that this Harvey Picar guy, great guy. Would have loved to have met him.
Seriously. And yeah, man. But there's many more to come. You know, there's many more Harvey Picars and all that stuff. And for some reason, I keep thinking this. I'm gonna say it one day. Like, I know it's not the same at all, but the Scott Snyder guy, you know, like he will be a Harvey Picar in the future in terms of how things evolve later on. You know, who's going to be left in the past and who's going to be a new, like, Harvey Picar or Stan Lee or this or that of the future. You know, those guys are replicable because what they do is kind of the pioneer in what they do. But in some different form, in the same art form as comic books, somebody will do it, you know? And it's just cool to appreciate, you know? I remember in Everyone Comics and Books where we were able to shoot our, you know, Sandman video and all that stuff. Demetrius let us see the old comics. I forget what the character was. Dread. And we were looking at it. And this is pretty cool because if you look at the trailer we put up, you can see all the old comic books spread out. And he was like, it's really hard to find these copies because they used to be treated like newspapers. Like, you would have them and people would just throw them away. So to find them in good condition is, you know, real beautiful comic books. They were unappreciated. Yeah. And in the movie, he was holding a form of these comic books in his hand, which was awesome. I think when he was talking to Bob Crumb or whatever, he opened one of these books up and it was basically the comic books that they used to just give out and just, they were nothing. And now these comic books, I'm assuming, are worth, you know, hundreds of dollars. And
every issue is like, I mean, because also just thinking about how much they cost, it's like they were like 25 cents an issue. And it's like nowadays an issue is like $3 or $4.
Crazy, bro. Crazy. So, I mean, if you find that gem, keep it because it will be a gem. It just might not be in your lifetime. You know, it's crazy.
Also, I'll just shout out that your good friend Chino.
Oh yeah, what's up, Chino? Now it's fucking time to talk, bro.
He just picked up the first volume of the Department of Truth today.
Awesome, man.
So
awesome.
Before he listens to our episode, he's gonna read it. So it's nice for him.
That's fucking awesome. I think that would be cool as fuck. Never mind what I just said, Chino. That wasn't me. That was Kim Jong-un. That's fucking cool as shit. Hey. I'm Kim Jong-un. Hey. I don't take poops and I don't mess with the burrito. Hey. I'll never forget reading the Department of Truth on the plane coming back from LA. And it was the first time, again, like we do this podcast for whatever we do, you know, millions of dollars, you know. But it was the first time coming back from a plane. I always want to do some work, you know, and I was writing on my laptop, just writing notes, like real serious notes. And when you look back at the episode, like I had my shit set up and I was just excited, man. Because I had a motive, you know, and now I'm genuinely just reading these books. Like today I was reading the second Sandman, like I told you earlier. And I just found myself getting lost, man. This book is so good, man. It's fucking amazing. And it's none of these characters I know of except the very few times they reference the Justice League or the Batman, which is like not even a page, you know? And I bought the third book today. You know, it's coming tomorrow, and I'm just excited, man. I'm still gonna read those Scooby-Doo books. Like once today or tomorrow when I get back from work, I want to take time out to read that. Like Spider-Man, what is it?
Superior
Spider-Man, and American Splendor. Like these are just all very new to me. And you've been reading comic books. Court of Owls, bro. That was the craziest. When I was reading Court of Owls, I couldn't believe it, man. I was just there like scream, like ah. And it's so cool, man, because regardless, it's reading, you know, and. What does it say for TikTok people and stuff like that? Read. It gets your attention span going. And it just removes you from these screens that we're blessed to have. You know, I watched Dark Knight on my phone today and it was awesome. You know, but simplicity is also beautiful because it leaves your imagination to the thing. And, you know, reading Attack on Titan, the manga, it's just all fun, man. And so super cool. Super cool. And I thank you for that shit, bro, because you put me on. Yeah, man.
Hey, it's what I do. I'm like a comic guru and just put people on the right path.
But I saw your own religion. You can.
I can. Just put a .org at the end of it. It's official.
You heard Biden? Yeah, man. So So what we do today, Javi?
Oh man, we were on the Earth,
and we talked about what's in our minds,
and this is why it mattered.
G-Cray.
This was Earth, Mind, and Matter.
Fucking woo!
Before we let you guys go,
I thought that was it. I was waiting for the music to come in. Before we let you guys go,
make sure to follow us on the social.
Earth, Mind, Matter Pod. We're on, what are we on?
Instagram, TikTok. Tell your friends about us.
Tell your moms. Tell your exes.
Yeah, tell all your friends. Earth, Mind, and Matter challenge. Remember, get a stranger to listen to the show.
Bro.
Maybe our one Norway listener got our Spain listener to listen. Maybe that's how that worked out. Who knows?
If you get a cop to listen to us, you're not gonna get nothing for it. What do you expect? Stop acting like you get things for doing things in the world.
I don't think cops would like our show.
You don't think so?
Nah,
man. I think it'd be a real hit.
A hit and deceased.
Hit and deceased. I was gonna make a crazy joke, but I don't know. At the end of the day, rest in peace, Eric Adams. He just got COVID today.
Yeah,
rest in peace.
And
yeah, man.
But rest in peace, Harvey Picar.
Oh yeah, for real, rest in peace, Harvey Picar. And I forgot to mention I forget her name. The lady, I think I did mention this earlier today. The mother who plays George's mom on Seinfeld. Mm-hmm. I have her actually written down. Let me actually get that real shout out because she passed away recently. And a lot of people, I think we definitely did mention this earlier in the episode, but the lady who played some part in Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and all that stuff, she passed away. And she was a great actor just because her voice is so iconic.
Yeah, it's pretty unique.
And her name was Estelle Harris. And actually, the father of George, and that his name is Frank Costanza. No, his name was Jerry Stiller. He might have been Ben Stiller's dad.
Oh, okay.
So you know who this guy is. Let me show you.
Yes.
Yeah. So this guy, he also played George's mom in Seinfeld, and he's been dead for a while. Both of them tremendous actors. He's on King of Queens. He played the dad of the wife in King of Queens.
Okay.
Fun fact, I always had the biggest crush on the wife of Kevin James in King of Queens. Always had the biggest crush. Not the dad, the mom. Oh, not the wife, actually, they have no kids. But rest in peace to Estelle Harris and Jerry Stiller because they are forever iconic, not only in their voice, but their comedic behavior, their impact, and yeah, bro. And nice. Eric Adams, rest in peace. Woo!